knowledgeable, is very,
He's a noted
yeah.
Catholic scholar.
But he knows a lot.
My social studies teacher for 2 years was the editor of America years ago. His name was Father Replogle. He actually did my first wedding. That wasn't really his fault, again.
My parochial school principal, Sister Adrian, she thought she knew everything.
Of course she did.
She would send me across the street to get an Italian hero, like up on Long Island, and a can of tab.
Mhm.
And I would
Tab.
say, what's with the tab? And she would say, Jerome, every little bit helps. That's what she would say. And I'm like, you got this giant sandwich that you're eating, but we want the tab is every little bit helps.
But he got in a can.
And again,
Everybody knows a tab is only good in the 16-ounce bottle.
no, there were no bottles.
Tab is not good. Tab,
Yeah,
it
tab
was
was
a diet,
nasty.
it was a nasty
That
diet.
was never good. And it was in a can, it was in a can, yeah.
Well, I mean, but it's,
It made the off
Every little
brands
bit
taste
helps.
good. Ah, good job.
She was awesome.
Sneakers and Diet Coke.
Is that right?
My regular snack.
Good combination.
Yeah.
Snickers and a Diet Coke.
Or a piece of like gooey chocolate cake and Splenda.
Yeah.
Hey,
To the Snickers and Diet Coke.
there he is.
I got the Snickers part. I just don't want, I don't like diet, I don't like the aftertaste of any of those things. So,
All right.
but I do like a Snickers bar.
give you a minute to get acclimated.
I'm good, I'm ready.
Born ready, huh? Good evening and welcome to the Board of Trustees work session for February 27th, 2023. I need a motion to open the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Can I ask a little question? Is
Yeah, sure.
LMCTV coming at 5?
I
Is that
believe
right?
so. We probably,
Okay,
they probably get the memo.
didn't know. Okay.
So what the purpose of this is tonight, is to have the board give some thought to, the staff pretty much puts the budget together. But, this is an opportunity for the board to have some input into priorities or special programs that might be, and you don't have to come up with the answer tonight, right? But it's just to start thinking about priorities and special programs that might be something that you want to pursue, or you think the village should pursue, so that we can talk about it and mull it over as a team. So, Jerry, you want to give a brief outline of where we are with the budget?
Sure. So at this point, with all the requests that department heads have submitted to Augustino and I and Dan. Is Dan, you got Dan on Zoom?
He's driving, he's 45 minutes away.
That's fine. So we are at a 9% increase in the budget. Right? It's single digits, so we're gonna try to stay in single digits. We are proposing this year some additional revenue that is the reoccurring revenues that will remain in the budget, provided that the Board of Trustees approves them initially, of $475,000
Of extra revenue?
of extra revenue that we.
And that is. So you have the 9%. This doesn't include the 9% doesn't include the extra revenue.
No. So boat storage of 100,000. Using our Harbor Island Park parking lot to store boats over the winter. A GCP parking permit, which is general purpose or general parking permit, commercial, which would bring in an additional $150,000.
50,000.
I'm sorry, 50,000. We are permitted to charge up to 5% on the library tax collection. If we do, that'll bring in an additional $150,000. And then we're proposing a stormwater fee for approximately $25 per unit in the village.
What do you mean stormwater fee?
So Augie can explain how we have the stormwater operation funded in the budget. regular budget.
Absolutely. Right now, in account 8120, we fund the dredging of the river, the catch basin cleaning, catch basin repair. This is all stormwater drains within the village. We're proposing to put together a stormwater fee, which will generate $175,000 to cover these expenditures. We would create a separate fund just for stormwater repair and cleanage and remove these expenditures out of the general fund.
So, okay. Then it would be charged for the use of water? Well, I mean, I don't get the,
It would be at $25 per household,
Stormwater.
for
stormwater,
everybody.
yes.
So per unit, like if you have an apartment building with 10 units, it's $250?
Yeah,
It would be essentially until the mechanics are figured out, it would be something along those lines.
So if you have a 3-family house, you're gonna pay $75. If you have a 1-family house,
25.
if you have a carriage house, you pay 50.
Correct. That's the basic proposal. They could be modifications to that. But what we are trying to do is create a fee for the $175,000 to remove it from the general budget. And develop a revenue line for the stormwater activity that we do throughout the year.
So it might be more adequately named a flood prevention fee.
Flood prevention fee sounds great. Because it would provide a revenue stream as well as a dedicated
Line in the budget.
line, yes,
Yeah.
for us to spend that money annually.
And maybe mitigation rather than prevention.
Mitigation.
Yeah.
Is this being recorded on Zoom, so it'll be available?
yes.
Yeah,
This is I think this is something the public might be
Sure.
interested in
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah,
about.
what we usually do is that when LMC TV is not here, we record and then we snip it over to them, the part that they didn't get.
Right.
Thank you.
But also, Nora, you're definitely right, but this isn't the first time this is gonna be discussed, right? This is.
no, this is.
Oh, yeah, just,
This will be discussed within our budget discussions.
Just a question, where's the camera for the Zoom? Oh, that's it. Okay, great. Okay, great.
So
I'm curious, I don't see any camera.
if the board considers and approves those increases, which would be reoccurring annually, the budget would go down to a 7.3% increase. As of right now, with our 30% guidance resolution for the fund balance in the village, we are $1.135 million over that 33%.
1.135 million.
So explain to me, what's the driver of these changes? What's the driver of the 9%?
Okay, so the 9% is, I can pull it up, but you all received an email from me regarding the costs that are not in our control with healthcare, pensions, and liability insurance. In addition to that, the police department is requesting $100,000 in additional overtime, going from 650 to 750. And an additional parking enforcement officer as a way to bring someone in with the expectation that some of the parking enforcement officers will be retiring soon, to have that individual trained and acclimated to the job. Those are some of the things. In addition to those are the only additions, truthfully. The email that I sent you, plus the big number in there. There's some small numbers that have ticked up, and universally they add up to a good amount, but I haven't added those amounts.
Okay, so it's basically healthcare and pension?
Healthcare, pension, and liability insurance, right? Flood insurance and our general liability insurance. But this budget also includes 15 to 20% for each department for utility costs. We had to increase those costs as well. And those are also costs that are not in control.
This is reflective of the price of electricity?
And also, gasoline, et cetera. So those are the kinds of things, that are in this 9% increase. And they're significant, they're not small, but I can pull up that email and explain to everyone, so, but I think. unless-
Yeah.
Well, why don't you please do it, give us a
I'll bring it
refresher.
up, okay?
When was that dated? I can pull it up
It
myself.
was
too.
Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, but
It was probably Wednesday or Thursday.
What was the title of it?
I can't remember, I'll look it up. I think you words to look up.
Holy moly.
Nice.
Title.
I think it was,
Acquiring connectivity. We have this juiced up.
So many
Can you-
emails from.
yeah, and you also sent an email about what New Jersey has
So, yeah,
excluded from the tax cap.
I
Can you,
explain a little bit of that?
can you recap what New York State actually excludes from the tax cap?
Right, so I'd have to ask Augie to try to remember that.
I looked it up and I couldn't find it. So,
Remember what?
What is excluded in the New York State tax cap?
I think it's a pretty hard cap, actually. I think the only thing excluded was increase in pilot payments. What's not excluded are increase in pension, increase in our health insurance, or, increase in our debt service to invest in, the village's infrastructure. So, at least two of the big ticket items are
Alright,
not exempt.
so those are not, because in some states they are, but in,
So we have medical costs, we have an 18.2% increase in medical costs, which is $1 million over last year. FICA and Medicare is a 17% increase, which is $226,000 over last year. Police pension is a 6.6% increase, 127 over last year. And CSEA, non-represented, everyone but police is a 14% increase in pension, $137,000. So that brings us to, let's see here, $1.5 million over the, over last year's fixed costs. So we have a $1.5 million problem. That's reflected in our budget of with the other increases such as utilities and some overtime costs. 9.04%.
and what's the dollar figure attached to the 9%?
Is $275, $214 times 9.04%.
Sorry?
I get it in a minute.
Okay.
9.0. $2.487 million.
2.478.
And the money and the revenue that you're proposing that we can try to use to. It will bring that number down by,
From the 9% increase to 7.3, unless we dip into some reserves, which we have in excess of our 30% reserve policy.
Have other communities been doing that?
Other communities have done it in the past. I don't know, I haven't been talking to other managers about this year.
but we want something that's gonna be consistent.
Yeah.
Cause these taxes are not gonna go anywhere. They're not gonna decrease. Next year is just gonna continue, so.
So sometimes increases, so in years past, Leilani, we have not had pension increases. In fact, we had pension decreases.
Mhm.
So as recently as last year, we had a pension decrease. This year it's a pension increase. It's all
Because
about-
as people die, right?
It's all about
It's also a lot of it's stock market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Dan?
Yeah, I believe the controller's office uses it's either a 7 or an 8-year average on the return on their investment. And that's what they base their pension rate on. And with what's happened over the last year, I mean, my 401k, or sorry, right, well, deferred comp, I guess that's 457 was not doing so well the last 18 months. And I'm pretty sure that's the same for everyone else.
So 3 weeks ago, when I sent this email, we were at 11.17% increase,
Now we're down to 9.
9.04. Which with the new revenue, we can get down to 7. And then the other items, if we use both the new revenue and some fund balance, all of that extra fund balance, what are we at? 3.5?
Yes,
What's the cap?
that's also,
Cap is 2 still for us.
and you also said you were gonna mention, that's also, part of the increase was that the hours change of the department in order to bring in.
Oof.
Like your job today.
So a couple of things we can do, we can, from our perspective operationally, we can make sure that all of the departments, especially the revenue generating departments, are bringing in as much as they can, and we're not missing out on any revenue. That's a case that I'd rather not mention for right now, but that if you put me on the job, I can take care of it. There's also that 6-week or 5-week period of free parking throughout the village. We can bring that down to a couple of weeks and bring back some additional parking, which we do during holiday season.
Say that again?
We have been for several years now, having free parking in the downtown and
Yeah,
parking lots
So I just want you to just say the weeks again that you.
from Thanksgiving,
Mhm,
to the day after Christmas.
mhm.
We can bring that down from December, we can bring that down to from December 11th to December 25th. And provide a couple of weeks of relief for a lot of the shop owners, you would think. Would be thrilled, but they're not necessarily thrilled because our experience this year has been that people would park there and just leave it there.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I mean, once, as soon as you did that, it was impossible to find parking on.
So we can bring that down to a couple of weeks, still provide some relief for the downtown shoppers who are not using the Westchester Mall or Amazon.
Mhm.
And still provide something. We could eliminate it altogether if we feel that there's going to be continued abuse, but speaking directly, and you know me, I get out of the office and I get on the street. Speaking directly with the PEOs, the parking enforcement officers, they were having a tough time. Having people move their cars because they were just like, well, show me where. It's 2-hour parking. So they were giving tickets for 2-hour parking where there's actually free parking. Not necessarily the best mix. It's like having cereal with orange juice. It doesn't really work.
So maybe we do it the week before Christmas.
So it would give the 11th is on a Monday, Mayor, and then Christmas this year is on a Monday, 25th. So we could do it, from
Weeks.
18th to the 25th, something along those lines.
Yeah, maybe just that last week.
Mhm. And then it would bring back a decent amount. What are we? We're probably at 55,000 a month in parking revenue, somewhere in that neighborhood. We could bring back a little bit of money there. There are tweaks that I can do on this budget to get us to where we want to be. Our discussion is tonight, if you want me to be at the cap, I can get to the cap. If you're considering doing a little bit above the cap, the only reason you would really have to do above the cap is because of this $1.5 million problem that the state and medical costs are hitting us with.
So the cap is a hard 2%, is that what it is?
There's a few exceptions, but I wish
Yes.
I could remember.
Yeah, it's 2% of the overall levy. But with the increases in the assessments, the pilots. I think it's closer to what, like 2.5%, Og?
Yeah, because they add back also whatever you didn't use from the year before.
So right now, Mayor, we are at $1.8 million. That's the 9%, right? So in excess of the cap, so there's a couple of things that are not included in the cap. If we went to a 2% cap, we bring that $1.8 million number down to $550,400. That would be that would be the amount that we could increase this budget and still stay under the cap.
500 and
50,400. 550, 400.
so we have to, that's
That's our
theoretically
2%.
what we have to play
That's our
with.
2% number.
Right.
Whatever guidance you provide me, I'm not nervous. It will just be work. Work is work.
Well, but when you this discussion, we're trying to have an interesting discussion. Like, set a cap is 2.5. Right. And if we go 3, not much over the cap, but it also gives us a better, the bond companies look at us more favorably if we go over the cap at least once. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Well, the bond. Jerry, can I?
You can, yeah. I
The
can
bond
explain
company
too.
basically wants to see that the board is motivated to improve the district. The bridges, the towns, the roads. The willingness to go over the cap is an indication that you're willing to do that to preserve the community as opposed to just staying under. And that's one of the things when we moved from Standard and Poor's, they indicated.
There are a lot of communities that will either stay under the cap or present or propose and get to a 0% tax increase. I've done it myself a dozen times. No, sorry, half a dozen times. All right, 0% tax increase. But that deferred cost of not improving
Recording in progress.
infrastructure, services, those kinds of things are not looked upon favorably by the.
And Jerry, just remember maybe about when I first started in this crazy industry. The town of Rye, the city of Rye had gone about 8 or 9 years with 0% tax rate increases. And they were really, in the thick of it and had back-to-back years of, I think one year was 16%, the next year was 18%.
That's the consequence. You're exactly right, Daniel. That's the consequence of doing that. So staying around the cap, they're just below, which is obviously optimum, and going above it, there has to be a good reason why you go above it. And I think we have that. Based on the control or the cost of items that are not in our control.
I think one reason that communities and school boards go above the tax cap is to reset, because, you can cut and cut and cut and cut and cut, trying to stay within the tax cap when it's first imposed, but then you get to a point where you need to figure out how you're going to fund your programs. So if there's any discussion of piercing the tax cap, there has to be a pretty good plan for making sure it's a reset, and then it won't happen again next year or the year after or in subsequent years.
And they do look favorably on our policy of 30%. It's not that they don't. We do look favorably on that. They will look favorably on an approved capital plan. They will. We're taking all the steps to get to AAA. If not the next rating, the one after that.
So this budget includes how many million in capital spending from the adoption last week, this proposed budget?
This
It's an operating budget.
is an operating budget.
The operating budget,
So it's what the
The
fall.
operating budget is used to pay past debt,
Right.
projects that already happened.
She wants to know.
so
what
we
the
have,
interest
what
and,
I'm trying to anticipate is whatever we spend this year on capital, it's gonna ultimately ended up being paid interest and principal the following year out of our budget. So I think we need to think about that
It's not
too.
in this one. So right now, this one has debt service. Anything you.
It says debt service,
fund- Anything you approve to fund will be in the next.
right,
in our
but
next
this,
budget.
but this year,
24-25 budget.
this year's budget is, this year's capital budget, which is separate from this, is going to impact
24,
the
25,
budget for
not
next year,
23, 20.
24, 25.
Yeah.
So
So this
I think
one
we
here-
need to anticipate like how much, if we do a reset, is it a reset that we can sustain in 2 years?
That's something that we can discuss as we move forward with what our interest rate is. What we're looking for as far as what we already know, because Augie has provided us what's dropping off,
Mhm.
right?
Right,
And then
thank you.
what's required and what's imperative, right? As far as the capital budget needs. Here, we can provide you, Augie may be able to look it up and give you the number, but we can tell you how much of this budget, of this $45,177,020 budget is in paying off debt service. If you could, can you look that up? You have that? If not, we
Yes.
don't have that.
I do, just the connection is not that fast. Let me try.
There are indications of some staff movement. 3, we already have 1, irrevocable letter of retirement in the police department. We anticipate 2 more. The breakage on that will be significant. That will
Breakage
be
in our favor.
in our favor, significant in our favor. Couple of long-term CSEA members are also indicating that they will be retiring. What helps us in our budgets, obviously the state and feds are not helping us. What helps us in our budgets is the negotiated contracts that we have. Because in the PBA, Augie and Dan were able to elongate the guide a little bit and save us about $53,000 per new employee, per new police officer. And then there's significant savings, which I've demonstrated a couple of times by email regarding the CSEA contracts. The CSEA contracts save us a lot of money because step guys have been eliminated. And in 2020, we reduced the starting salary by $10,000. I'm sorry, like 10%. So as they move through the years, they no longer gain the $4,000 or $5,000 step increase. They just get the 2 or 2.5% increase. So when we have movement of older staff leaving us, we save a significant amount of money. This is reflective of that. It's just that it's hard to overcome the 1.5 in cost not within our control.
So the principal in this current budget is 2,411,466. And the interest is 922,569.
So just over 3,
Just over 3.
just over 3.
But that's on a smaller amount that we have bonded than we're anticipating for this coming year, right?
That's on bonding going back.
Mhm.
Maybe
That's on
27
bond, and
years.
it's 47 million that's currently outstanding.
Right, that could be, you know,
It's
the
on the back, yeah.
So our annual payment on 47 million is 3 million principal and interest.
Right, but I'm saying is if we go ahead with this, with our proposed capital plan, we will be having we will be bonding more than 47 million.
Yeah, but each item,
Mhm.
I guess I explained this, but I want to explain it again. Each item that comes to you will be presented to you in such a way.
Yeah.
where we show
Right, I'm
cost,
just-
And then we show you what the impact is. to the
Right. It's just if we
Now
do,
that we have a plan, that we can start working on those items and provide those items. Because I know the level of detail you're looking for. Come on in. We know the questions you're asking. We know the questions you're asking. We'll be ready when we come to you with a 500,000, 2 million, $5 million.
Thank you.
We know what they- we'll provide that. So,
Wait, how many items from our capital are revenue generator?
I don't know the actual number, but I can identify them also that way. Okay. Now that we have a budget money, I can start fine tuning it and give you answers to those things. Just continue to continue to add detail to the existing plan, I can do that. So if there's a consideration to help with some of the 1.5 million by using fund balance, which is our rainy day fund, that would help a little bit. If not, I can go back and
Squeeze some pockets.
and play magician.
Well, no, I think you should continue trying to tweak and let us, think about where we will land on that.
So where do you guys want? Thanks. Where do you guys want to land? You want me to come to you with a cap compliant budget? Or are you available to provide a little bit more and go over the cap? That's really what I think would help us, the trio gauge.
Well,
To me, I would consider going a little bit over just because of the benefits to the rating. And we haven't got, well, do you remember offhand, when's the last time we were over?
Not offhand, it was quite a years back.
Decade at least, right?
Yeah.
At least a decade.
I don't, how much is in a rainy day fund?
It's what, 17 million?
I'll give you
The amount that's over 30% in the rainy day fund is 1,335,888.
That's what's over 30%, but I think they were asking the total amount.
The total amount is 14,888,994. That's in your undesignated.
But we,
We have to figure out.
the policy is to make sure that there's 30% always there
Mhm.
in case it needs to be used. And that 30% number is gonna go up with this new budget. So it's,
Right.
so the 30% is
We
what our
can't even
budget is
use
for
it.
this year. But if our budget's another X amount over, that 30% number is gonna be bigger too.
That's on this budget. The 30% on this.
On this budget, on this year's budget.
So we can't even-
That doesn't necessarily reflect what we will be able to add to the fund balance after we complete and close out this year.
Which we have consistently been doing.
We have been by tightening our belts and watching and making sure that we're not spending when we don't need to spend. So we do that fairly well. The key to trying to deal with some of these costs that we're getting hit with is to hopefully, as Nora said, reset, use some of the reserves, some of the savings, kind of push off that with the hopes that you don't have it again next year. That's a big wish.
Then
But-
if the idea is to reset to give us more padding the next year, it would probably be a good idea to go a little bit over the cap.
It does. It does give us. And I mean, I can get into the Cadillac services that we provide. I mean, we're the only ones around that are still picking up rear yard. You guys get all the emails that I can dish out in one day. We provide services, like crazy. I mean, they are high level, responsive, effective services. And it all costs a lot of money. It all costs a lot to be able to do that. We focused this year on some revenue generating. We get close to $500,000 in revenue, something that I didn't have to really worry about last year because we didn't have the increase in the medical FICA pensions for both PBA and regular. We didn't have those concerns last year. So we kind of, did really well. But this year, those are costs that are not avoided. Not avoided. As far as our general liability, I'm negotiating that with a bunch of different brokers and a bunch of different individuals, individual entities right now. So I want to get in at right around where we were. But our flood insurance has gone up, so I'm trying to obviously why our flood insurance has gone up. I'm trying to shop that around right now. Our workman's comp is going up by $170,000 I'm shopping that around right now.
Why is that not?
Because we've had claims.
3 out of the 5 years we've exceeded our payouts. And these are older claims. These are not current claims. These are some big claims in the past.
It takes a while for them to get processed.
Some big claims in the past. And I think we are right at the point where we will, in a couple of months, not have a police officer on long-term workman's comp.
We've had that since we've been on the board.
I think we have 4 that have dropped off, retired, different, I guess, designations of retirement. And then we have 1 still left, which is just finishing to close out. So this could potentially be our first year that we do not have in 6, 8 years that we do not have a police officer on long-term workman's comp, because we used some resources, some additional resources out of my budget to hire a company specifically focused on trying to get these things resolved. Because if you don't resolve them, they'll just linger. They'll just keep collecting.
On the flood insurance, are there, do our flood mitigation efforts impact that at all? I know that the things we're doing,
So our rates
Yeah.
are always set on what we've lost, what they have paid out in the past.
I see.
So if you have a long period of time where you don't have a flood and you don't pay out, then the numbers go down. So right now, we're at this point where things are starting to catch up on us because of Ida, which was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I get it.
September of 2 years, right?
Yeah, you'd have to demonstrate how you mitigated the building somehow, either elevated or otherwise flood proofed it. Yeah, the flood insurance policy is per structure, not,
Okay, all right,
it's not based on the village's flood mitigation program.
got it.
So I don't know the timing. There is an additional $3.5 million that's coming to us from FEMA. I don't know the timing of that. Okay, so I can't include that. I can talk about it, but I can't include it in these numbers.
And when that comes, how does it have to get dispersed?
So it just goes right back into fund balance. We've taken it from fund balance, it goes back into fund balance. So what we've done is we've been able to operate our budget, operate payroll,
Mhm.
and as well as deal with and pay for in advance a major flood event that we've received some money from insurance payout and then some money from FEMA. We still have 3.5 that's outstanding that are still going through certain offices and sign offs at the FEMA level. Once we get that, it goes right back into fund balance because that's where it came out of. So last year, we talked about a $17 million plus fund balance.
Mhm.
Augie just has 14 it's because of that.
So that-
$3 million
right.
number is that floater. rate.
Different than it was a year ago, but we've
It is.
been floating FEMA repairs.
We've been floating FEMA repairs.
And that money could show up, at any time
It
or?
can show up at any time. And we've benefited from having some of that money come in because of the process that we changed where we would, instead of breaking down instead of having Ida as one large event, we broke it down into 14 or 12 different events. So we gained some of that money back, but then there are some big numbers that are still outstanding.
And Jerry, what the key calculation in our fund balance is the undesignated, unreserved, and that continues to increase year to year. Is that correct, Augie?
Correct.
Yep.
Because that is the actual, rainy day fund.
So
So with that 3.5 million, we may not be in as bad a shape or this is bad shape, but that would dramatically improve our situation.
I wouldn't necessarily use the 3.5 million to put into operating
Mhm.
because it came out of reserves. It would go back into reserves.
Yeah,
So that would bulk up your reserves, right?
enable us to take more out of reserve if we want.
Right, so right now, what we're looking at is the potential for you to use 1.335 million in reserves, still be at the 30%. Understand that there's 3.5 million that's gonna go back into reserves at some point. I can't tell you what date that is. And then kind of with that 3.35 million, wipe out some of these larger out of control costs that we're dealing with from FICA and healthcare and pension.
How's the mortgages this year? They're down too, Augie?
No, it's up.
Mortgages were up.
You
People are
can't,
refinance, people
around
to that
here.
point refinance, but The houses in this area sound like hotcakes.
Yeah, they sound like hotcakes. It doesn't matter.
But there's also a pretty small inventory, so.
So the numbers are up there. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is. There are people who are just paying cash for houses around
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
This is a
Messing
messing
up the whole system.
Mhm.
So now you know the numbers laid out. But if there are other things, not necessarily that cost money, but if there are adjustments in the budget or that impact the budget that we need to talk about, the remaining 10 minutes is what we have to talk about.
Well, we have the rest of our lives to talk.
And what,
Today.
just, one factor is, and I know it's a small factor, but every time we increase the number of employees we have, those kinds of costs that are going up for us, which are the FICA costs and the insurance costs and the pension costs, all go up. And so I think we still need to think about, whether we have full-time people versus using some consulting services.
So that was definitely a factor in the past, right? Now, we are effectively, when we have a new staff member, right?
Mhm.
That's a true cost.
Mhm.
But those costs have typically been, in the past 2 years, offset by the fact that when a mechanic making $90,000 is replaced by a mechanic making
Recording in progress.
$60,000, $62,000. There's a significant savings there regarding that. When a employee who has been with us for a little while, husband, wife, family, has a family plan,
Mhm.
we typically bring in a single person, right? Because it's an entry level type position. So we save on the health insurance. So
Yeah,
as we have transition in the village, we save a lot of money on salaries. That was not the case 4 years ago. That was not the case. In fact, 4 years ago, we were looking at a scale that was in actuality untenable for us because of the increases in how they had it all set up. But a new staff member would be, so we have brought in additional staff, but part-time. So there's several part-time individuals that help us. Timer that helps. Cliff, that also we send him over to the beach to work part-time there as well for summer season. Danielle has part-timers. They have 2 part-timers, right? Danielle right now. We continue to use part-time staff at the parks and at DPW. The challenge has been DPW and parks having trouble getting part-timers.
Mhm.
So in those lines, this year, we have significant savings.
But
Savings
it-
goes back into fund balance when we don't spend it.
But sometimes savings in that regard add to more overtime.
It does sometimes, right? It does sometimes. So but department head, the process here that we have here is that department heads have to ask me when they issue overtime to their employees. Right? So we have a check on that one. So unless it's requested by me and I give that approval email, they do not have the ability to dole out overtime. So we do have a little bit of a control on that, but you're right. Sometimes it does that.
If you don't have enough staff, it's
Yep.
the burden that falls on the rest of the staff.
The police department would
Mhm.
get that because we have so many people, or several individuals out. Our overtime was significant at the police department, non-reimbursable overtime, right? So those are the kinds of things.
Yeah, and Jerry, as,
One second. There's also that special events discussion, right? So we
Mhm.
have that full detailed spreadsheet of those special events.
Right.
Some of those special events that may not be exactly what the board wants could be cut for this year. And there are actual savings in that when it comes to overtime and other outside costs.
Can we get a list of those special events? So
We
that,
will.
see what we can, because I personally
There's some
don't,
savings there. So
I
if you
personally,
have them and you pick them, that's fine. If I take that list, there's gonna be some serious cuts from there that I'm gonna have to present.
What's the cost for a special event, like on average, would you say the cost for a special
I
event?
don't have an average,
They're
rate,
all
but they're
different.
all over the place.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. And they each will have a cost associated with it. So. Not guaranteed payroll. So you know what guaranteed payroll in our language is employees who are hired full-time who get paid anyway, whether they work or don't work.
Mhm.
My preference is that they work. But that is but that is guaranteed payroll,
Mhm.
right? These are outside guaranteed payroll. This is
Mhm.
overtime, supplies, those kinds of things. Overtime's a big one.
Off the top of your head, how many special events do you think we would have that would fall into that? We don't really need them category.
5 to 6 out of 20, 21 events.
We're representing how much money?
I don't know, what was it, 350, 335? We had 335,000 annually in special events. When we looked at it, I don't know, shave,
You should have a quarter of it, basically.
yeah, shave a quarter of it, so, 15, I don't know, maybe 10,000 off that. Sorry, 100,000. Something along those lines. But it depends on, where you want me to go. This is not my first budget. I'm not. But I could get to a point where my back is up against the wall and I can't cut anymore. So,
Understood. So I see what the two things we have that are in our control that I say we reducing this the free parking, taking a second look at that. And reducing special events.
and reducing special events would be in your control. Any increases that the department heads are asking for would also be in your control, because this is, at the end of the day, your budget after I present it. So I present it as tentative, and then it would be your budget after that.
You could always say that we'll entertain it possibly at a later date, but for right now, may not.
If I get the direction from the board to stay under the cap, I'll present the budget under the cap. If I get some consideration to move it above a little bit, I'll move it above a little bit. I will present to you what this meeting outcome is.
Yeah, I mean, the cap seems to be in large respect kind of a psychological thing, but it's a message to the community that we're trying not to lean on them too heavily. Property taxpayers pay a lot of money in this community, and we get that.
They do, but 1.5 million increase of this budget
Mhm.
is out of our control.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
that's kind of a frustrating part is because the figure that derives the cap comes, comes out of Albany.
Yeah.
And these costs come out of Albany.
I understood. What they call it was unfunded mandates.
Unfunded mandates, yeah.
Yeah, but that's like saying, the flood water we don't make the flood water, but we still got to deal with it.
So I'll give you an example of health costs. So health costs, just real quickly. In New Jersey, you have about 20 plans to pick from as far as your health costs. All different types of deductibles and out-of-pocket payments, all that stuff. Where you have the flexibility to move around and offer employees or negotiate with the employees a lower cost plan. In New York, you have one plan. That's it. And whatever that cost is, whatever those increases are, there's no way to mitigate away from that. There's no way to mitigate away.
That's a state, I mean, that's,
It's just-
we don't have,
how it is here.
well, I mean, we could lobby for that at the state level, but
And we
that's,
could go outside as long as the services and
Yeah.
the plan details are the same.
Mhm.
To find some, you won't find it for the cost that they have.
No.
But those are the kinds of things. Dan, I'm sorry I cut you off. I hear you breathing.
Well, there's, two things, first, as far as the health insurance. I mean, the only other option that, you see in municipal government is around here is Palmco, which is more expensive than Empire.
Yeah.
And secondly, you talk about, going back to Trustee Lucas's question about, the incremental costs of each employee. As daunting a number as the pension is, it's actually lessened by the fact that, as new employees are hired, they're coming in at much less gracious pension benefits than employees of my age. I think, there's still the majority of people in the system are in probably tiers now tiers, 3 and 4. But as, more retire and no longer collect pensions, that number will be greater in future years. I think for tier 6, they contribute for the lifetime of their employment. And as they earn more, they actually pay more into the pension program. So whereas I was capped,
So Dan, so right now, an employee, after a certain number of years, their pension payment drops off. They don't have a pension.
I mean, I haven't had to contribute to my pension since 2011.
But if a new employee is hired today, they have to pay pension, 6% pension. Till they're retired, right? So
Well, and actually it's employees.
Because of that,
Well,
then you do catch up when you have an employee here for 20, 25, 30 plus.
Some of the reforms that were implemented in the past, now beginning to bear fruit.
For us.
yeah, I have to admit that the actuarial analysis and assumptions are way beyond my pay grade. But, you know, simple math will tell you that, you know, our pension obligation, if it was still the same setup, would be, you know, much more significant than it is right now.
Well, I mean, as this doesn't seem too daunting. It doesn't. It seems like we we certainly can deal with it.
We can deal with it.
Yeah. The question, I guess, is then what do we consider inviable? What limit is it? That 30% cap in the reserve, or is it the tax cap? And what's the number? What's the line you want to stay away from?
So it's a choice. It's your choice. I could present it two ways, but I have to file a tentative budget, right? But if we want to preserve fund balance, then we're going to have to go somewhat above the cap and impact the residents a little bit more than cap. If you want to give the residents a little bit of a break, you have the money in the fund balance to be able to do that. Okay, that's
the rub.
that's it right there.
And if we get up to the line on the fund balance, we still have that $3.5 million
We have the
headed our way. So it's not as much of a brinksmanship move as it might appear.
No, but you still have a significant amount of fund balance that other municipalities do not have this level.
Yeah.
I mean, do not have this level.
Well, it's a
Because
nice
we
problem.
have a for a small community, we have a large budget, but we also have a very large fund balance that we use as cash flow to help us pay our bills and manage our projects. And in the past few years, we've been doing projects. We've been doing projects to a point where Augie says, please help me out a little bit, ease up on the projects. I'm not sure if I listened too well, but the truth is, we do use that money in the fund balance to manage our projects and move forward with the infrastructure, especially infrastructure. That's the highest cost.
So is it something we need to do?
Well, I think we need to give him. If you're comfortable doing it tonight, or if you want to do it, do you need it tonight or you need it in 2 weeks?
I'm gonna keep working.
I understand.
Hey,
But he needs a decision, you know, whether
To stay under the cap.
stay under the cap, not stay under the cap, to use fund balance, or, I mean, as I sit here, what seems to me the most prudent way is to use some fund balance and go a little bit over the cap. This way, you know, you grow your margin for next year.
I don't. It doesn't feel right to break the cap. It doesn't to me. I mean, I would like to, and I know it. It's a small thing, but it's a psychological. It's something that makes people anxious. I mean, property taxes make them anxious,
And yes,
and understandably so. And I think we need to signal that we're trying as hard as we can. So I don't think we should do that unless we have a gun
So
to
can I
our
add a comment? If I can add a comment. Sure. So the tax cap is a creative mechanism for the state to try to keep us in control of our taxes.
I understand, yes.
But if you're just under the tax cap, you're still raising taxes
Mhm.
on everyone.
Yeah,
It's that level of tax increase that you're talking about. So I agree, there's some psychological, right, component to it where, oh, we stayed under the cap, but we're still raising taxes. Well, big deal. You still stayed under, you still raised my taxes.
I get it.
But the reality is we have a community here that provides a significant number of services, and we're always trying to improve this place and make it better and make it a great place for people who decide to live here. And we need to continue to pay those costs.
So well, I understand what you're saying, and especially with all the flooding and people having to fix their homes and everything else underneath the sun. It's more so our job to educate the community on the services that we do provide so that they can really understand where their money is going. Because some people they don't know. And doesn't hurt for us to continue to educate them and for them to understand that this is just across the board. I feel that the taxes, not the taxes, retirement and
Fixed things with their own
they're gonna
people.
go up. I think just the way the world is right now, it's gonna go up. It's not just this year. I think it's gonna go up again next year. And we're gonna continue to come back to the same conversation. And it's just happening all over the place.
So it comes to what can we afford? Now, I'm gonna call them these deluxe services that we provide. Yeah, why don't we make a list of those and discuss them individually and ask the community to come in and weigh in with us about just how important they are. Maybe people don't care about backyard pickups. I don't. Maybe they do. Maybe we're doing. Maybe we're operating on a assumptions that are a decade old. I mean, I remember, and I covering stories in Connecticut where that exact item was eliminated, and some people made a fuss over it, but it ended up not being that big a deal, and it saved them a lot of money.
It does. It saves a lot of money in personnel as well and truck, because you gain a lot of time by picking up the garbage at the curb.
Yeah.
So through attrition, natural, retirements, you wouldn't necessarily have to have a layoff, but you wouldn't have to replace individuals as they retire.
And there are
There's some
people.
savings there.
Yeah, and there are people here who take their trash to the curb,
Yeah.
who would be probably surprised to learn that some of their neighbors don't have to.
People moving, people moving into this community think they have to.
Yeah.
They do it for a period of time, and then only when we discuss it do they realize, I didn't know you picked it up from my backyard over here. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because
So
we lived in another community that had curbside pickup.
and I've seen it be. I mean, so it's again, it's a change, but it's something that I think that I'd be interested in hearing people come in and say, hell no, don't take that away, or yeah, it's nice, but it's a little much.
I can tell you what my experience has been with
Yeah.
cutting back services in exactly this context. We're reducing the service, you tell people, to save you tax money. And the response you get is, I deserve that service, I pay a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
And it goes, then you try and make the argument, that this is a blue ribbon service and it costs money. Yeah, but I don't want to pay all this money. It just goes, I'm just.
Look at the indication, right? So Augie's news about the mortgage tax.
Mhm.
The taxes in this community are not keeping people away from buying homes. They're moving in.
Mhm.
But then there's a segment of population.
Mhm.
Can't stay.
But can't stay,
Yeah.
So it's a hard thing for us, to have this split community. It's like the worst of both, it's the worst situation that you could have. So you have to kind of, feather it out and see what you can do, where you can do it, all the time.
And we actually had,
Go ahead. Sorry,
we actually did suspend the rear yard collection at the beginning of the pandemic. I think Mayor Murphy and Trustee Lucas were on the board at the time, and there was some criticism of us for doing that.
It was a little bumpy.
Terrible.
It wasn't terrible.
Yeah. There was criticism.
It wasn't terrible.
Well, let's look at them. Let's look at what we have to look at. I mean, it's information. What will it save us? What's it worth to the community? Some people are going to say, well, I don't get that. Why should my taxes go up, be any higher because somebody else doesn't want to take their trash to the curb?
So if I could ask at the next work session, if I could have a half-hour slot to present to you some of the things that you've asked for tonight, which are special events, those kinds of things.
Yep.
And then where I can get to without touching additional fund balance, what number I can get to realistically without the additional fund balance added to this.
And you also have a number that says, if I use $300,000 of fund balance, how does that affect, what number gives you a percent?
And
Yeah.
just remember that policy, it doesn't say we can't go beyond or
Yeah.
below the 30%, but we have to, when we do it, have a plan for replenishing.
Right.
And I
but
think
this-
in a 2-year period. So it's not meant to be draconian. It's just meant to be
No, no,
a
So I have
safety
So
valve.
I have the answer to the plan because it's the FEMA money that's expected.
And also, this is a new board could set a new policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So I can provide that.
Please.
What's it? Oh, the 9th is March 9th. of the
13. Oh, wait.
13.
What is it?
No,
So
13.
I just need,
13.
a work session item for 30 minutes and
Okay.
get this done.
And we had already talked about the free parking. I think that has an unintended consequence. And as Dan likes to say, if you treat something that you're providing as if it has no value, people will treat it like it has no value. And our parking has value.
I think if we have some, agenda backup too for this, we'll get a sense of what the public is thinking too. Because I think that this is the time to get,
What, so
You
the
get
only agenda
census.
backup that I could provide you guys is the calculations and the spreadsheets that
Yeah.
we would do, that I would create with.
Yeah.
The trio would create to kind of create, right? These calculations, what other backup?
no, I mean, just the fact that we're talking about the specific things we're talking
Oh,
about,
oh,
maybe
yeah, that would-
modifying, just so
okay,
that, just so
No,
that
no, I agree
people,
with
so
that. Okay.
people will they won't be surprised.
Okay.
And following on what we're just been talking about, in your report later, can you talk about the change in the food scrap recycling?
Yeah, sure.
And these numbers you gave us for boat storage, GCP parking, library tax,
That's additional, that's revenue.
yeah, those numbers, we could end up collecting more than we anticipate, right?
Yeah. always.
Okay, all right, so that.
The library tax collection, we're not adding a library tax, we're adding a fee permitted by law to collect the.
The tax for them.
For the library.
Basically, so we take a portion of the libraries.
We take nothing now.
I understood,
Yeah,
but
we would take the portion.
so they've just,
We would hold it.
we would hold a portion. So if they had $100,000 budget, we know that's not accurate. We could take 5,000 of those dollars.
They would have to adjust their.
They would have to adjust their budget, okay, and because, so that's not an additional tax, although the library budget has gone up, but the stormwater $25 per unit is an additional fee, so even though we're looking for more revenue, some of these things will cost individually more money.
Yes.
They would.
And the stormwater fee is the one place where I'd be willing to say that we have to do that. We live in a flood prone community. Everybody's got to chip in.
Okay,
Thank you,
So-
everyone.
think about,
Thank
think about for the 13th, all of us individually, what you would like to see in terms of either under the cap, over the cap, use of fund balance, how much use of fund balance? And Jerry, could you give them the numbers that would help inform that, like, how much would it take to get to that?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna move on to the next item, going out of order here, 2C. We have our friends.
Do you want to reset that so that you have that right at the?
Yeah, hold on. Augie, I can't get on as host. Can you reset?
Can you get on at all? And I'll make it.
I think he probably needs that meeting ID and password that Cliff gave to us.
Cliff, can you email?
I think he does. It just keeps saying because it's saying that the meeting has already started. And if he goes in, he has to end everything.
And I end everything, I'm still, it's a
But
22.
we're not sure if he ends it, will it end the meeting that we're currently on? Yes.
And everything.
I did, and it's still. and
No,
it's
no,
not-
you
it does
didn't,
the
you
same thing.
didn't end it.
I did,
You
I
did,
did.
you tried
I
it?
did.
Oh,
a few times.
killer.
Goes back to the same scenario.
See if you could help us with this.
Oh, you don't have to do that, right? When you do that, Sally, and let's move on, but stay in the meeting. Let's not in the Zoom meeting. Hi. Sorry for that technical difficulty. Tonight, we have our friends from the Community Counseling Center. If you don't know what the Community Counseling Center is, it is building over 234 Stanley Avenue. It provides what, you know, the name is, what it services in its name. It provides counseling to members of the community, families that need help. No one has ever turned away. It is a great organization that is a product of the tri-municipal community. They run on a pretty much a shoestring budget. And so I think it's a good exercise for Dr. Levy to explain to us what they do, what their needs are, and how we can help them going forward.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see everybody.
Hey, Doctor.
So, thanks for the introduction, Tom. Which way is the camera?
You should be right there.
Oh, that way?
Yeah.
Yes, so as Tom was saying, if any of you don't know us, you should get to know us. Our doors are always open. Probably everybody who's watching this knows somebody either in their family or a friend locally with some kind of mental health issue or joint pain, or just needs a helping hand and some hope. Our doors are always open, and we turn no one away in our local community. So we are a public nonprofit entity, and as Tom was saying, we do all kinds of things from crisis intervention to individual and family and group counseling. We see about 1,000 kids a year in the schools from different prevention programs. You know, our La Casa program that provides mental health services in Spanish. And whenever this community is in crisis, whether it's 9/11, whether it's COVID, whether it's floods, the counseling center is always here to help. And we help in whatever way is needed. I want to introduce, before we get into funding and questions around that, I brought some of our wonderful staff. I want to introduce them and they can talk some of our programs. But first, let me introduce Pam Buck-Mueller, who is our co-president of our board. Thanks for coming, Pam.
Thank you.
And this is Dr. Alan Dienstag and Dr. Katie Sawyer. Dr. Dienstag is our clinical director. Stuff, Sawyer as well. They created the Parent Center, which in COVID alone, these guys provided over 50 programs to serve 1,000 different parents and adults in this community, helping them cope with COVID. That's just one of many things that we do.
Nice to be here. I guess the thing that I would focus on and the unique quality of the community counseling center is that it is a counseling center for this community, established by this community, and focused specifically on the needs of this community. And we, over the last 5 years, have really broadened our idea of what it means to be a community counseling center. So we're getting, Katie and I in particular, get out a lot more. And Mark is right, during COVID, we set up on Zoom, really a kind of community, floating community support group where people, or mostly it was because parents know us as a resource, but we let people know that if they needed to talk about what was going on during that time, they could just phone in. We had support groups, Zoom groups of up to 50 people. We brought physicians in, nutritionists, public health experts, things like that. So we like to think of ourselves as really broadening this definition of what a community counseling center could be. And Katie and I spend a lot of time working with parents as well. And I want to talk a little bit about parents.
So we offer all sorts of different programs.
Could you please get closer to the mic?
Yeah, sorry. We offer all sorts of different programs. We are in the elementary schools and the middle school, and sometimes in the high school. offering talks and workshops to parents about parenting your anxious child or dealing with issues of body image or how to have difficult conversations, how to create your family's drug and alcohol policy, and things like that. We also offer an 8-week parent skills group where we, people from all over the community come and learn, basic parenting and relationship skills. We've been doing that for about 8 or 9 years.
It starts at 7 o'clock, by the way.
I'll be busy, but.
Yeah, that'd be here.
And I think, in addition to all the parenting stuff, some of the really exciting things that we've been doing lately is we've really been adapting to the needs of the community. It's no secret that there's a little bit of a mental health crisis going on. And so we've been able to run groups on a fairly, quick turnaround, with, anxious, socially anxious teenagers. Actually, right now, as we're talking, is our new group called Connections, where kids that are just having a really hard time connecting with other kids at school or in their neighborhoods are just invited to come and they have conversations. And it's really been, we've had an amazing response from the kids who have participated. There's an epidemic of loneliness, and it's the one day a week where kids can come and eat cupcakes and, just connect with other teens. So we've really, been very fluid, and I'm very proud of how flexible that we've been in these last 5 or 6 years with being able to deliver kind of what we see as the community needs at the time.
I think people feel, they wonder what to do about the mental health crisis. It's a term that, activates you and worries you, but at the same time, it can be hard to figure out, well, as citizens, as members of a community, what can you do? And so, the counseling center is a really unusual resource in that what Mark said is a unique and very rare thing, which is that access is prioritized. So this community has a place that does not turn you away if you live here and you need those services. I think it's really important in this moment to be thinking about, this is something that we can do. We can create access, we can create a space and a place for people to go when they're experiencing that difficulty. And there are a lot of people out there who are experiencing those kinds of difficulties, teenagers in particular, and families. So it's an important thing to maintain a contribution to, certainly from our point of view.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's hard, I'm sitting here listening. It's hard to convey what really goes on in this wonderful building that you have given us, which has been our home for 50 years. Because here we're talking, we do this program and we do that program. If you sat in the rooms for a day and saw the adults, the children, the families that come in and out, who have nowhere else to go, and they come here and their lives change. And that's what it's hard to convey to you guys sitting here, which is why I want to also invite you to just come to the center and come meet some of the staff. Because hearing from the staff who are there doing this day in and day out, you really get more of a flavor of what the nature of the work. And as Alan was saying, you don't hear about the crises that go on because you created us. There are lots of suicidal kids and adults out there who are desperate and they don't know where to go. And here, the predecessors who sat in these chairs 50 years ago had that vision. They go, we need to create something right here for our own children and families. And over the 50 years, we probably served well over 50,000 of their neighbors and friends over these years. So hard to get the flavor, but that's the impact that we have, changing lives day in, day out by an incredibly dedicated staff who just do amazing work, who are professional and passionate about what they do, and no one is turned away. We have waiting lists, we're always busy, but as we were hearing, we try and move things through. So if someone's in crisis, they're going to see somebody and they'll have someone to talk to. And we are very fortunate in this community to have this. Because you don't see things that other communities have because they have someplace to go. And they have a place that will find a way to get them in. We have a 24-hour answering service. You know, it's, the crisis work is important. And then, of course, all the other stuff. These guys give talks at the local churches and synagogues, or the local summit, all kinds of, you know, the speaking bureau, we do active, these guys are great, really can convey skills needed, not just parenting skills. How do you cope with life? How do you cope with anxiety? What do you do when a loved one is sick? You name it, we do it. And we're always very open to whatever the community needs at that time. That's what Alan is saying. We keep growing and expanding what's needed. We can't meet all the needs, we just don't have a big enough staff, that's why we have waiting lists. But we really try and pivot when needed to what's needed at the time. So that's a quick overview of just some of the things that we do. Yes.
Young folks coming up today to high school, and young men and women, are they more receptive to the idea of therapy and getting help than our generation was?
Absolutely.
That's good.
Tom, what we're seeing now, there's probably a lot of forces at play in this, but mental health from celebrities, sports celebrities, you know, who talk about their problems, has really opened it up. So I think that the stigma is so much less than years ago. No question about it. And when we do a campaign like, "Are you okay?" which is something that came from, I think it was the suicide walk that we took it from there. And that's like a campaign we've done, and we may revitalize that campaign of just saying, "Are you okay?" to people around you, just opening up, knowing that there are people who want to care and want to listen. So accessibility, definitely easier coming in. Good question, Tom.
Well, you know, when I was a young man, you know, there was, I guess maybe it was from the time and the place where I was, you know, you would never admit that you had a problem, that you couldn't admit that anything ever bothered you, right? You were impervious to the world outside. You know, it's a toxic masculinity that we had in the 60s and the 70s. And, you know, and it is toxic. I mean, it's, you know, it's, I guess, you know, I've thought, it's having sons, I've thought a lot about how that affected me and hoping it didn't affect them. And, you know, so I'm happy to see that young people are more open to it. And I know, you know, a lot of people that have, you know, young people that have referred their friends, brought their friends, you know, just, and it's a treasure to have as an elected official, a place where you can send a family that's having, you know, problems that, you know, should be kept confidential, but you know that there's good people that you could send them to.
Tom, that's right. And you guys, all of you sitting here who devote and volunteer your time, you know, this is one of the things you should go home and feel good about. This is one of the things that really matters to the people that you're serving. And you would be amazed, every family knows somebody who needs a helping hand.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of what's going on in the world today. So it is a gem of this community. And I want to thank you for restoring our beautiful building. Thank you for the windows. I hope they're coming. Otherwise, the rain is coming in. And
They're
just
coming.
They're coming. Thing is coming.
do that again. It's a wonderful space, and I really want you guys to come, pick a time and come over and come to a staff meeting. You'll get a feel for what happens there. Any other questions before I talk about funding? Any other questions? Yeah.
Is there like a demographic or as part of our community that you struggle to reach?
We certainly did before we started La Casa, which is our Spanish-speaking mental health service. It's very hard to find staff because we do, as Tom was saying, our salaries are low. People can go and get more money other places, so it's hard to find It's hard to find Spanish speaking therapists, it's hard to find African American therapists because they can charge a lot of money. These are challenges.
So have you thought of other ways of mental health modalities that are not necessarily possibly a person who doesn't have a license in clinical therapy, but possibly have a background in maybe Afrocentric, because you talked about the African American community, Afrocentric models, and they're just not trained by the way of Western education, but have the skills to meet the needs of certain populations. So looking at alternative ways to meet the needs of the individuals who are seeking mental health, because especially nowadays, like you said, youth are now receptive to wanting to receive help for whatever's going on in their life, as well as adults. And what is also coming about is people are also looking for different ways of getting help, or the different modalities. They're not looking necessarily at the traditional clinical ways of mental health services. So have you looked into those?
It's a really interesting question. You should come and talk with us because we're always open to exploring new things. Certainly one thing we do is we train master's level therapists, which is free labor for us. We train them. It's one way to expand our staff. I think what you're thinking about, it would be a new direction, but we're open to thinking about it. Come and talk with us about it.
No, it's like even art therapy, drama therapy, all these different modalities because we've been in the realm of traditional clinical therapy, and what we're seeing, I mean, I know what I see in communities is just that people are seeking other things, and just being able to use their natural born skills of art, dance, theater, or connecting to community is a way to express themselves. So we need to open ourselves up to the different modalities that are outside of our educational background preview, and look at the different cultures and what they used to do in terms of their indigenous practices, and really seek how we can meet their needs with that.
Absolutely.
But yep, I can totally come.
Yeah. Funny, I'm like having flashbacks because I had similar conversations with Keith.
I bet. I come from
years
him.
ago, and we would think about this, and we've done so many different programs over the years, including stuff I did with Keith way back when, addressing that issue. But every generation needs to have it refreshed, and what's new now, and how do we intervene now that would be most impactful.
Yes.
So definitely appreciate where you're going with that.
No worries. Thank you.
Any other questions about the program, and then we can talk about funding.
Yeah, I'm interested in what you need from us, because it sounds like something we certainly should support. If you have a waiting list, you probably don't, I mean, are you well known enough? Do you need help getting the word out that you're there? Or is that not your problem? Do you have too many customers?
If you asked me that 10 years ago, I would have said we kept our work very quiet and confidential. And some of you knew Jane Orens, and we used to say we were the best kept secret in town, but we knew how to get to, whether it's the schools or youth officers or pediatricians, people knew. But now it's a good question of how does this next group of young people know us? So one way they know us is we see all 6th and 7th graders in our prevention program. So we see 800, 900 kids who get to meet one of our staff. And then when they're in the high school and they're in trouble, they go, oh, I remember that nice person who came from the counseling center. They were okay. Now we're piloting new things. These two talented people this week will start taping recordings to be shown in the high school every Thursday. And they will do like 6 minutes of something, interviewing students, talking about different mental health or substance abuse issues. But that will be seen by this group of 1,000 students. Oh, that's the community counseling center. So we're always coming up with new ways to make sure that both adults and kids know us. I think most adults in the community have had in some intersection with us at some place. I'm not always sure about all the kids. Because some of them, even though they met us maybe in 6th and 7th grade, they're in crisis in junior year, do they remember us? So we're really actively doing things like these programs like that. Is there anything you want to add?
You know, I would just say, I have to.
Yeah, but please, so that people watching on TV can hear you.
I love the idea of government, local government, interacting in partnership with an agency like ours. And so, you know, I think, you know, yes, we have a waiting list, but I think this idea that, you know, that we can join forces in a way in terms of creating awareness about certain kinds of things, right? I mean, you have a bullhorn that we don't have. And I think that, you know, that would be an interesting kind of collaboration. And again, it would really extend on the investment that you've made in us, you know, to kind of join us in partnership on issues that we can all recognize, right? That we have in common and concerns that we have in common. So it's, you know, it's not therapy per se, but it's therapeutic when there's a sense of community speaking with one voice about an issue. Whatever the issue is, we have to kind of put our heads together. I think that's a way that would be a great way for, you know, for this kind of a collaboration to work. And certainly we'd be open to that. That would be terrific. You know.
And we're just on that note, so we're starting a new community coalition called LM Connects, which is all about this theme. It's replacing the Radar Coalition, the Drug and Alcohol Radar Coalition. That during COVID, that stopped. So we're resurrecting a new coalition more geared toward community connection, wellness, also substance abuse prevention, but a broader reaching mental health issues in general. And we've got all kinds of programs that we're starting to think through what we're going to do with that. What about connection? I do think culturally sensitive connection and connection in general. As we're talking about, there's so many people living right now in our community who are feeling lonely. And they may have people around them, but they still feel lonely because they can't really connect. And so that whole, like, how do we promote more connection in the community across many groups? That's why we're, you know, part of that interfaith speaking series. And we're always open to new ideas. So any thoughts that you have, we're always trying. About, do we need more people? It's not, we always have waiting lists. So it's not like we're looking, but we do want to know if you're in trouble, if you're out there listening, there is a place to go. So it's the people who really are in crisis and they need, we want them to know there's a place to go. So that kind of answers it. So in terms of funding, Tom, is this an appropriate place to talk?
Please.
Did you guys get that write-up I sent? Just read that, because that kind of went through the general overview of where we are. In some, to put it really down to the bottom line, about every 12 to 15 years, I need to come back to our four creative, the 3 municipalities and Board of Ed, and say, okay, our deficit is now too high for our board to manage. You know, it's a small agency, a small board. And what happens is our main funding, which is a New York State grant that comes through Westchester County Department of Mental Health, about $260,000. We apply for it every year. Thank God we get it every year. That doesn't really increase. So our base stays the same. The municipalities, like you guys, 15 years ago, you were giving us, I think, 35,000. 15 years later, you're giving us 39.5. Village of Larchmont, also for 8 or 10 years, same level funding, school. So we're at that time now where our deficit has grown to a place not manageable, and we need to just recorrect. And because this is a shared responsibility, a joint effort by the 3 municipalities and the school, it's manageable. Meaning, it's not like we need another 100,000 from you guys. What we do is think about what's a fair distribution. So the school needs to come up, and I've got some verbal commitment that they will come up substantially. And then I was really breaking it down to what I'm hoping is 50,000 increase from the school, 50,000 increase from the board, meaning they set their goal of fundraising
Mhm.
from 125 to 175, which is a lot of work for a small agency. And then the municipalities come up 50. The town of Mamaroneck already increased 20,000 2 years ago. So it's like 30,000 left to increase, to bring us our deficit to a more manageable level, which is usually about 150, 125,000, which is what I think the board can manage more. And so what would be great if you could come up with, you know, if it was 10, 10, 10 or 15, 15, 15, we would be there, which are not unmanageable numbers. And as you can see, I don't come back. I haven't come back in 10 years going, please more money. I wait until we're really at that reset point. And here we are again, this is my third round of reset. And everybody always kind of joins in, we try and make it manageable, and then we continue the great work that we do. So if you could, you know, would we want more money? Of course we would, but we are grateful for what you do with our building. We really are, that's our home. That's why, you know, we're very, very appreciative of that. Nora, I know all the work we did to get the historic thing was really terrific. And you guys just did, you know, come by. Tom, I know you were there at our opening. The place is welcoming, it's peaceful. People, you walk in the door and you feel like, here's a place I can get help.
Mhm.
So in terms of bottom line numbers, please don't come in at less than 10. We can live with that. We can come in with more, that's great. But if each municipality does their fair share, and the school comes in with another 50, which we probably will, we're okay. And we'll go on and the ship continues. Does that sound fair and make sense?
It sounds like a ballpark, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, we before you folks got here, we were having an in-depth conversation about this is budget time. About where we are with the budget. But one of the reasons we were having a conversation was so that the board can talk about priorities, right? And not just the dollars and cents of actuarial work. And I think you've all, in my view, and in my experience, have made an excellent case why you are an essential service.
Thank you, Tom.
No, it's you know, I'm a big believer in you know, mental health. I've witnessed not having it, and so you know, I think that, and you know, I've always said this too, and I know, and I don't want you to break it down by how many kids are from this community, how many kids are from that community, but you know, when a kid's mom and dad can't afford to hire a therapist, there's a good chance that they're coming from our community, and that to me matters. It's, you know, it's a hard thing to be a kid in any time, but this time it's just, you know, the advent of social media and all that. It's brutal.
Well, that is, Tommy, you have it correct. We see a lot of no fee, low cost cases from Village of Mamaroneck. It's just the nature of what we do. We certainly, because we're here and we work so closely with the CRC, Mamaroneck Avenue School, we see a lot of Village of Mamaroneck people who really need a service that is low cost or free. That's the only option, and that's why we're here. That's why we do this. And that's what keeps us inspired as well.
You have our attention.
And I know we aren't fundraisers, but there are people in our community who maybe don't know about this organization or don't know that they can help the organization by supporting the organization themselves. People,
Call me.
But that's,
Set
you
something
know,
up, that would be great.
that's,
Yes.
we can all help.
And you guys should know, some of our programs, like the little concept program, is totally privately funded. That was from a $250,000 donation. So we seek wherever we can, private donations to help support the program. So it's really, this is a shared responsibility and joint effort. And guys, thank you. I know you have a lot on your plate. It's always good to see you guys.
Including windows.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for everything you do.
Have a blessed
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you. Did you?
All right.
Whatever.
Say hello. And bye.
Okay.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah. It's a great organization, that, you know, that they could always use a hand.
Yeah, do I have to stand there?
You know, I usually don't have, at the work session, we don't usually have people talk, but I'll make an exception this time because I know you came.
It's fine, I'll be fast.
Okay.
Hi. So first of all, I actually am a public health and mental health communications professional, and it was a completely random coincidence that I happened to be sitting next to these people. And wow, what a beautiful thing. I have
Yeah.
lots of ideas for them. I'll follow up. My name is Nancy Tourette. I just wanted to introduce myself because it has been 5 years plus since my husband and I bought our house in Mamaroneck. We made a very, very thoughtful, conscious decision to move from Irvington, which was a wonderful community and still is, and we had a wonderful home where we raised our children, to Mamaroneck, because we thought this is where we could live for the rest of our lives, and it's a really interesting place that's so diverse and is on water and has so many, it's a real community. And I'm glad we're here. We did buy a house that was distressed, and we knew when we bought it that it was distressed, but we didn't know that we were going to have so much trouble fixing it. So I'm gonna stop right there because you're gonna see our paperwork and we're filing things, and I don't think we've gotten anything yet. But I have spent the past, what is it now? 3 years working with engineers and Army Corps of, you know, FEMA, everything, to get to a place where we had all the paperwork in place so that we could actually apply for remunerating our situation and not having inundation on our property, simply because we're the only people in the pond and the only people in the block that don't have a functioning seawall. So I just wanted to say hello. And thank you, because I do love Mamaroneck, and I want to love Mamaroneck, and I want to love my house, and I want to feel safe in it.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Neil.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Let's just go back to the top of old business and try to work our way down. Review of village code to include fair and affordable housing for all zones in the village. Mary, we ready with this?
Yes, I think we are. So this new proposed law will expand the development requirements. Yes. Okay. It'll expand the development requirements for affordable housing, the TOD and C1 and C2 zones to all the residential areas. So any development with 5 to 9 units will have to have one affordable unit, and anything above that will need to have a 10% development unit. Also, it expands the development bonus to any other areas that it's not currently in, and I think that will add zoning district C1 and the senior residentials. And like the development requirements, it's incorporating the same type of bonuses for the additional zoning areas.
Is so this is an expansion, not necessarily an expansion and a change?
Well, it doesn't change the RM1, RM2, RM3.
Okay, all right, so, okay.
All it's all districts besides the C2, RM1, RM2, and RM3. Is that correct?
That's for the development bonus.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at here.
It would be all districts where multifamily housing is possible.
Okay.
So that would be clarified.
So that would be, what are the other districts? C1?
C1 and RM senior.
which I think is only one property.
Yeah,
It's a small area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
one.
senior building. On Holsted.
right.
My question,
I think we're gonna have the same question.
I don't know. But my question is, I can't remember where I saw it, but I did read it, where it says the way things can be contested is like if somebody felt like this wasn't didn't represent the character of a particular area. Am I reading that correctly?
I think you're talking about the secret requirement.
Yeah.
Any law that affects more than 24 acres, and it is a zoning change, is going to be a secret type 1. Those are the criteria that you're going to look at. It's pretty clear that this is not going to be a change, but the secret requires you to go through the process and make sure there aren't any kind of substantial effects. So if you're getting a density bonus, there might be more people. And so we just want to make sure that that isn't additional strain on traffic, on sewage. And considering that it's voluntary and it's such a small amount, unlikely, but it does need to be one of the criteria that we look at.
So it's mainly about, which I can totally understand in terms of traffic and in terms of sewage and everything else. One thing we do have an issue with in our community is housing discrimination. So I don't want that to be in the way. Like, is it very specific? Like, because there could be people who can contest like a development that can come in.
So I think what happens here is the seeker has to be done before the law is passed. So it's not individual applications.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be like somebody's criticizing something that's specific. And if there is an adverse environmental impact, like the density might be too much, there's ways of mitigating that. So that's why so that's just basically make sure that we're not tipping the environmental scale too far in either
That's
way.
totally
So
fine.
it wouldn't be those specific, it wouldn't be a specific application.
If
And the
that,
only reason that this is type 1 is because they've defined in the statute that any zoning change affecting 24 acres or more is automatically type 1. So they're not considering this change in particular, but it's just by statute, it's something we have to look at.
It's that threshold.
And I see this has you started about 2.5 years ago? This is, am I right?
yes.
I don't know that.
It did,
Yeah,
it did, it did, it did.
And so what took it so long to get to this point?
Just kept getting dropped.
All right, well, let's.
Mary did not drop it. Mary was not here 2.5 years ago. Mary got it done.
All right, let's, yeah, it seems.
Okay, so the question is everybody fine with, at the next March 13th meeting, scheduling a public hearing for this law?
Absolutely, yep.
Yep, me too.
I mean, we can't require more affordability. That's where I thought you were gonna go, Leilani.
Well, but that's on the,
A specific law, right? I mean,
that's a specific law that I had on the agenda towards the,
No, you about racial discrimination.
well, I have village housing discrimination, but also medium income requirements.
Okay.
well, this law, I mean, we're not telling people what AMI they have to build out with this law.
Yeah, so that's why I
Right.
can,
Right.
let's go
I mean,
through that and then I
I-
can go through.
Yeah.
It would, and I don't
It's-
know.
They're
that-
separate. Yeah, you
Yeah, I
got
don't
it.
know. that we can.
That's fine.
So if we're, in order to do the, we can't, the public hearing for the zoning change, does it have to go to planning and zoning board because it's a zoning change? I'm just trying to,
No, it does not.
but we need to do the seeker analysis and that might take longer than 2 weeks.
Get it done in 2 weeks.
Well,
There's-
but all we're doing in 2 weeks is schedule a public hearing.
Right, but we're supposed to,
But you
I
know,
think
you don't
it
have the
just-
secret analysis done before you schedule a public hearing. You don't have to.
we don't have to. And we have a lot of information about, I mean, basically, this is going to be build out information.
We have that.
From the moratorium study from 2019. So we have that, but I think it's going to be hard for the staff to do it. They're going to need some help from either Neil, who did that study, or AKRF. I don't, I'm just, that's my guess, that's like a level of analysis that,
Yeah, I can work with AKRF.
Mayor, we have a lot.
Yeah.
We have a significant amount of stuff, so if we were just gathering it up and kind of digesting it, we would be able to see that.
but, I mean, if you can't do it in 2 weeks, I mean, I think it's a big lift, so I don't wanna put you,
No, but I think,
You think-
the mayor was saying, 2 weeks is just a public hearing, then at some point,
you-
there's another 2 week, it's like a month.
Yeah, well, you could
right,
even,
right.
right,
okay,
in March
okay.
13th, you could say, okay, we're
Yeah,
gonna
okay.
schedule this for April.
Yeah,
And give them more time.
Mhm.
But I just want to get it rolling.
I do too, I do too, for 2.5 years, so I'm,
So- okay, so we'll schedule the public hearing for March 13th. And Dan Sonoff,
Yes,
Would-
sir.
when you do the resolution for the public hearing, leave it blank and we'll decide on the night when we're gonna schedule it for. If they need
Okay.
more time,
mm,
okay?
Well, I'll make sure that it's blank.
Thank you, my friend.
thank you.
Building and fire code, there's nothing on that, right? We're not ready for that. Sales land encroachment,
Yeah, we're holding that to the 13th, but we did get the updated survey last week.
survey says,
Yes. I shared the survey with the town of Rye. There are 2 monitoring wells, 1 vent on the town's property. We expect to have comments on the site management plan from the DEC in mid-March is what I've been told.
so it's all, am I wrong to say that property is all that we were questioning before belongs to the town of Rye?
I'm sorry, is it wrong to say it belongs to the town of Rye or wrong to say it does not?
No, is it right, does it belong to the town of Rye?
Yeah, that's everything points to that. And it's noted on the survey.
And we have a test well, so we may be the one approaching.
So we owned at the time those.
It's something ironically delicious about it. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Elimination of off-year
All right.
elections.
Oh, this is my obsession. The
You right about that?
I have,
Your obsession.
I have a, I think I have an idea on how to do this, and the idea from everything I went through, all the input we got, watched the meeting again, all that stuff. Everybody seemed to be focused on the extension of the terms as their point of alarm and what they wanted input on. And I hear that loud and clear. We shouldn't change the terms with finality until we get let the people weigh in on a referendum. Logistically, the way to do this, I think, would be to separate the 2 items: the elimination of off-year elections and the extension of the terms. And I think we have the mechanism to do that. The law that we had the public hearing on 2 weeks ago eliminates would eliminate the off-year elections. We could just do that. It also comes with a term, a default term thing on it, but that could be superseded by a referendum on term lengths that we will commit to doing in November. In other words, rather than construct a whole new law that marries the 2 items together, we simply pass the law that we have before us, and then commit tonight or right now to having a referendum on term lengths in November that would supersede whatever is in existence. So what I'm suggesting is that tonight we do an up or down vote on the law that we have before us. And I would ask
Never.
for two more of my colleagues to vote with me on that, to pass that. And we also commit to scheduling a referendum in November on length of term limits. In other words, allow people to say, no, we only want 2-year terms. We don't want 4-year terms.
I have a question.
Yes.
What would be the real, like, I don't want to say real reason, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
But what would be the reason not to even push the term limits to November, like having them to vote on that as well? Like, what is the benefit? What is the hesitance, or like, what is it, is it gonna?
I can answer you. It's logistics. After going over it, and it's like a Rubik's cube, it makes my brain hurt. If we put it all off and do it all together, the soonest that we can normalize the schedule under the new concept would be 2028. All right. If we act with what we have in front of us, we can do it by 2026. All right, so it would be fairly simple. And I think that's, and there was very little concern about the elimination of the off-year elections that I saw. There was a little bit, but I think it's I know Nora has her opinion on it, and I've talked with everybody individually. Everybody's tired of hearing me talk about it. I know that, but I think we do that. We get it done, and then we let the voters weigh in on whether we have 2 or 4 year terms. And I'm willing, and I'll tell you this, if we vote on it tonight, if Nora makes the motion to vote on it tonight, I'll vote on it. If it doesn't pass, I get it. If it does pass, then we're fine. We'll be done with it, and we know what to do. But I think this is an election reform, and you do not ask a defective system whether we'd like to be reformed. You reform it, and that's what we're doing. So that's what I want to do.
Okay, I strenuously disagree.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I think that the original law that was proposed, if we add to that law a provision for a referendum, which I heard loud and clear from the people of this community, that, and people who agreed with the law and people who disagreed with the law all wanted a referendum. And I agree with them on that. And I was convinced of that. I didn't originally feel that way, but you know what, that's part of what this is. And the original law, how that would have worked is in 2024. The folks who then stood for election in 2024 would be running for a 4-year term. So that, you'd have 60% of the board on that cycle within a year and a half.
Understood. I'm sorry.
And then the other, the people who ran in 25.
No,
Yes, hold,
Oh,
let me
okay.
finish, Nora, please. The people who ran in 25 would then be running for a 3-year term to put them on
yeah.
even numbers cycle.
Mhm.
So that nobody who's now sitting on this board would be affected, in their term of, how that would work. I think that that's what we left here 2 weeks ago, telling people we were going to do. And I think that to have a vote tonight on this issue, it doesn't look good. And I know that there's, you have the right to do it, but, in my view, and I know Lou, you voted no, so, so I understand your
I'm not
position.
changing. I'm asking two.
No,
other
no,
people to
I
change.
understand. Well, I understand. I know you, but in this business, right? I mean, you can change your mind, but when you've change your mind, there has to be a damn good reason, and or else it's going to look like you broke your word. And once you broke your word, you can't put the word back together again. And that's I'm afraid if what my friend Lou is proposing goes through, that's the way it's going to appear. And I think that everything you want to accomplish can be accomplished with amending the law that we had in front of us with just a provision that says this requires a permissive referendum November, whatever it is. So I caution you all to tread lightly. I understand wanting to get stuff done, but how things are perceived and how, your word is taken is, something that you can't fix, once you broke that China cup. So that's all I gotta say about it.
All right, well, I mean, I would, what I would like to do is ask the, I'd love to forget about these two laws that we've asked them to fashion, these Rube Goldberg things where the election, the off your election cycle and the terms are married. I don't think that was necessary to begin with. It wasn't my intent. It was what was on the shelf. I would like to ask the village attorney to come up with a referendum for November on term lengths, period. Are our terms 2 or 4? What's the term length? Right. So that's the thing for November. And I want to eliminate the off-year elections because it's not fair, because it panders to low turnout, because it's part of the dysfunction that this government has experienced in the past. It's a reform. It's an election reform. And again, you don't ask institutions if they would like to be reformed. You reform them. All right. So that's my unwavering position. I know I'm asking 2 members of this board to join with me in that. If they don't want to, then I'll live with it. But I think I made that promise, and I want to give it a shot.
I don't understand what you're asking, so let me try and see if I'm getting it. What you're saying is, well, you want to have a
Make any
referendum,
decisions.
Yes. We do anything without you, Tom.
want to have a referendum on whether or not the term should be 2 or 4 years.
Yeah. In other words, it would probably be 2 years.
Okay, so you have to propose a law that's either 2 or 4 years. You can't have like
Understood.
a choice, right? You can't have a referendum about opinion. You have to, it's on a specific law.
Right.
So you want to have the referendum about whether it should be a 4-year term or a 2-year term. But you want to change the law tonight to change elections to even years and make that
I want
by
to, yes.
permissive referendum. So when would that take effect?
That would take effect, what, in 30 days would it take effect if we pass a law tonight?
We passed a law tonight that affects election cycles.
Yes.
That would be for a mandatory referendum.
No,
This is the one that's on the table. The one we didn't vote on 2 weeks ago.
we can change the year of the, believe me, I wish it required a mandatory referendum. That would be my present. If we change either the length of the term or the year, it's a permissive referendum. Changing the month is I think a mandatory referendum. So when we went from March to November, it was actually a smaller amount. It was like a 5% referendum. But if we do this, it's going to be roughly 2,400 signatures for the public to force a referendum. So if we made this law change, then basically.
It would be 30 days before it took effect, whether or not they were.
So how does that work?
Well, here's what we're doing.
I'm just, let me.
Okay, I can
So
explain.
there are 2 people who are going to be running in, or more than 2 people running in November for a 2-year term.
Right,
What would their term be?
3 years.
Then you have to change the law to giving them a 3-year
No, the
term.
law that we have in front of us would do that. The law, in other words, a law that
He's right. If we pass this law, it'd be a 3-year term.
it'd be a 3-year term, and then we would be done with then everything out.
And then next year, any person who runs in 2024, that would change them to run for 4 years.
Here's what I'm proposing. Pass the law tonight, all right? We wait 30 days for it to take effect, and with the promise that that in November, we're going to let the voters decide whether they want to leave it at the 4 years or they want to make it 2 years.
You have to pass another law about the terms. That
The terms is included.
No,
in the
you-
current law.
you
You're
We
right.
don't-
You're right, Nora.
Yeah,
I think she's trying to explain.
I'm sorry.
No, it's, I mean, I think
I understand it.
Tom and I are like.
Yes, but you just.
Are on the same page.
Yeah.
You either, first of all, I think it's very disingenuous after what happened the other night to vote on this, to vote this up. But if you vote on the law for which we had a public hearing, that's the law. You know,
Yes.
you can't just say, oh, but we're gonna have a referendum. That's not how it works. The law that we scheduled a public hearing for and that we had a public hearing for and that we closed the public hearing for
Mhm.
does not give an opportunity for a referendum. It requires the residents,
Yes.
the public,
Yes, I understand
to
that.
get 240 signatures to push a referendum. So
2,400.
2,400, sorry, 2,400. So I think you're basically doing what you said you wouldn't do 2 weeks ago.
That's
But-
not what I know, no, what,
Well, he didn't
He's-
vote, so in his defense,
Okay, right.
he didn't vote.
I think what he's saying is that it's fine for the voters to, in November, to vote on the 2-year, but he wants to try to pass something that would just say, we're switching to off-year elections because,
Yes.
so I've heard,
Changing the law, isn't that eliminating what's in front of us, isn't that eliminating the whole cycle, the whole term thing? What do we have to do? We have to create a new law.
No, that law is, and again, we took it off the shelf, we put it out there, I probably shouldn't have, should have refashioned a new law, but the most efficient way to get it done would be to pass that law and then have the referendum in November. Now, I didn't anticipate that the opponents to this would focus on the term length, because I was not focused on the term length. Don't care about the term length. I care about eliminating the off-year elections. All right, so that's what I want to accomplish. And we can, and virtually every comment we got was about the term length. It wasn't about the heart of the matter, which was eliminating off-year elections.
Okay, just let me
Yes.
put another wrinkle in this. If we do what you're suggesting,
Mhm.
and then there's a vote on 4 2-year terms, and the voters choose 2-year terms,
Mhm.
that means all 5 of the representatives of this board will be running for re-election at the same time.
And that's an issue that should be discussed in the campaign for that
Well,
referendum.
no, that's an issue that we should be discussing here because it has a big impact. You want to pass a law that would make that happen.
Yeah.
So it would have a big impact on the community.
Well, the question is what's the bigger evil? Is the evil constant annual elections where we're never more than 6 weeks from election activity? Or is it the fact that everybody might be up at the same time? That's the question. And to me, the off-year elections with the low turnouts and the constant political cycle that never ends, that's the thing that has to go.
But in my view, you solve that with this law, right? The law that was in front of us that we put on the shelf solves that.
Okay.
But the only problem I have with that is that, I think it needs a referendum.
Okay.
So I'm not for passing this law without a referendum, because first of all, it's a huge change. And the people should have time to think about it, because frankly, we're not gonna, I'm not gonna be here when it takes into effect. So because right now, because we didn't, if we put this on with a referendum, it doesn't affect the term that I'm running for. Right?
Okay, understood.
And I'm not just talking about me, just let me finish it. But, you can get back, you could be on the cycle, as you say, if you pass this in 2026. Because, yeah.
Mary, can you help us out here? Because my brain's starting to hurt now.
My point is, this gets you where you want to go.
By 2028, I think.
No, 2026, because in 2024, the 3 trustees will run for that
Okay.
term, right? And then in 2026, the people who have run, the people who run in 25, the people who run in 25
Mhm.
will run for 3-year
They're
term.
running for
Yeah,
3 to
right.
to get on the 4 in
Yeah.
28.
Yeah.
Right.
And then 26, the people would run for 4.
And frankly, you're right. I'm in a hurry. I want to get it done. So,
And I'm
yeah.
sorry, what is the hurry?
What is the hurry?
Yes.
We're gonna have two low turnout off year elections where people who don't show up at this room won't be engaged and won't be participating in the process.
So that, I'm sorry, Nora, but okay. And why I wholeheartedly understand that,
Mhm.
wholeheartedly. And I think that I want to change the off-year elections, but I also did say
You did say that.
that I
And
would
I'm
bring
asking you
it,
to change.
and I
if
know-
you don't want to, I understand.
no, but, and what I will also say is, Lou, from the election that we just came off of,
Mhm.
and to say low turnout, and people weren't able to show up. Historically, yes, but that will require us doing work. Any person who tries to run, it will just require them to do some work
Mhm.
to get the people out.
Okay.
And maybe it would just take a little bit more time.
All right.
Um, I just don't want to go back on my word. And it's just, and also, we did not explain that we were gonna do this. to them.
We didn't because they were trying to rush it through and listen, I view this as like the football play. Where the guy seems to have caught the football and it hits the ground. And then you send it upstairs to the refs and you realize the logistics of this means that we're married to multiple off-year elections that we don't have to have. I would like this to be the last off-year election. Now, maybe if I don't get 2 votes, it won't pass. I should think we vote on it tonight. It goes up or down and that's what it is. I'm telling you what I'm asking. If you don't want to come with me, I hear you. Okay, that's it. Okay, there you go. There you go. All right.
Manny, what about you?
Are you the?
I mean, I'm with Leilani, I just don't want to go back, but I also don't just see the rush. I think we can, I think it should start in 26. 26 is the first for 4, 28, and then they're one, and then people in 25
Okay.
going for 3. I just think that's the best cycle.
Can I add this?
Mhm.
I also don't want, there's things that could go to there's things that need to go to the public. And there's also going to come up, there's things going to come up that don't need to go to the public because we do have to make a decision.
Mhm.
For me, this is something that can go to the public.
Okay.
But I want any person to know that there's things that are gonna come up and we'll have possibly the same amount of people or not the same amount of people. We're gonna come and say yay or nay, and then we're gonna have to make a decision.
It's like the dog park. In dog park, a lot of people said yes. So
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So I hear that. I think
that's just what makes the job hard.
I think there'll be a kerfuffle. It'll blow over by November. We'll have the vote and it'll be done. I'm willing to take the heat on it. I had I had these individual conversations with everybody. Nora and I had this conversation more than a year ago on the phone. You remember, and you were saying, ain't happening, right?
No, I didn't say it.
Well-
I didn't say it ain't happening. I gave you my reasons for
Yeah.
why I think that it's a bad idea.
Yeah,
I did
okay,
not
I
ever say
understood.
it ain't happening,
But
but it might not.
It's not happening.
it might
So
not.
how much?
So anyway, I'm gonna say, if Nora makes the motion tonight to bring this to a vote, I will second it. We can have the vote and be done with it up or down. But
Don't put me, I'm not,
I left it-
I don't,
we left it on the-
I don't feel.
I left it on the table for a reason, for this very reason. All right, because I was not ready to vote it down. All right, and this,
You
and I
can-
wanted to take time and look at it. I didn't want-
Nobody, you weren't the only person that left it on the table. I made a motion to vote it up. I made a motion.
Yes, you
to
did.
vote. I didn't get a second.
Right.
If it's something that you think is important, it's in your court.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna bring up the motion tonight that we vote on it, and I'll accept the judgment of my fellow board members. All right. And then we know, when we know what to ask the poor village attorney who is
I thought we-
drawing up
I thought we-
9 different laws, right?
I thought we gave like pretty much guidance last time.
For two.
You asked, but we didn't vote on it. though.
Yeah, but
Well,
you
you
don't
can't-
vote on the guidance that you give the attorney until you get the new law in front of you.
All right. Well, I think we should vote on the old law and dispense with it.
You've made that abundantly clear.
Okay.
You'll need a vote to add an item to the agenda.
I move that we
No,
move.
no,
We have
Lou,
to do-
when we get into the regular meeting,
Yeah,
when I get to the last item, you can say, I'd like to add an item to agenda. I make a motion to add an item to the agenda.
Okay.
And if you get that, but that's not voting on the item,
Got
it's
it.
voting on actually adding an item.
Understood.
Are we voting on anything right now? 'Cause I'm-
Okay, got it. That, but you,
We're not gonna vote on anything in work session.
Okay, there you go. We're not large. We don't vote in work session.
Resuming Village Aid Section Housing Program, Jerry? What do you got for us?
So. Doing the research on this, if we take it back. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry about that. Doing the research on this, if we take it back from the town, the administrative costs that we incur, put into this process are reimbursable by, from HUD.
Wow.
So I think that if you look at the town's website, all of the affordable housing units, all of the affordable developments that have developed in the last few years are not listed on the town's website, which means I think they're somewhat behind on that process. And there could be a bunch of reasons for that. But a couple of years ago, when I first joined this community, affordable housing was a big deal, and making sure that developers provided affordable units in each development was a big deal. And so we have some developers who have not been able to get past the issues that maybe the town is experiencing to get these developments on the website, available to people with a consideration for people who are on the waiting list. So that's why I'm presenting to you that we should take it back and take back the administration of approximately 400 housing vouchers that would be in my office. There would be no staff added to this. It would be myself, Dan, Courtney, and Miri administering this and working with this.
We would be reimbursed for your time to work on this?
Correct.
And have we gotten an explanation from the town as to why they haven't acted on some of these or any of these?
Staff turnover is the only thing that I have, but I wanted to talk about this before I go to the town to see what your feelings are, if I need to pursue it or not, if you're interested or not. Well, before I have to discuss that with them.
Either way, absolutely have to. I mean, my understanding is that the Phillips Park development, there's empty units in that are waiting for affordable, waiting for applicants that they just. That's, there's no point in our asking developers to build these units. If we're not
It's not- That's the problem. That's gonna be a problem. I'm sorry, Nora. That's gonna be a problem all around if we don't continue to fix our AMIs. Like, things are just not gonna be affordable. People can't you're gonna build and then people can't afford to live in them.
But they haven't gotten one reference.
Okay, but I think I think that this is worth exploring, but I don't think it's the only, so I think that this may not be the, I think we have to figure out how we're going to fill the units. But I think talking to the Housing Action Council, talking to Rose Noonan, because they do this, there may be people who do this with greater efficiency and competency than we can do right now.
So the town uses an outside service.
And so Housing Action Council is one group.
Okay.
And I don't know, that was we had a grant to do it. We gave money to the town when it all got dissolved, and it was 12 or 13 years ago. And for a period of time, Washingtonville Housing Alliance did it. So I just think we should talk to the other. I'm not saying, Tom, I'm
Not the
not
Section
saying,
8.
no, but they're doing their own apartments, but I think we should be talking to the people who really are working on affordable housing and getting affordable housing built in the county to see what the best way of doing it is. It may be us, but I think talking to Rose Noonan and Housing Action Council may get you a little more information than we have now. And I'm happy to help with that. Okay, I'm happy.
So this, I just want to point out there's two components. There's the immediacy of filling apartments that are vacant. And then there's the administration of the Section 8 vouchers. And Section 8 vouchers are allow people to live in an apartment. They pay 30% of their income and the federal government takes up the rest.
Mhm.
So that's the lion's share of what the work's gonna be.
Mhm.
You know, putting people in those apartments is the gravy.
Mhm.
So that's, and it's an important function. I just looked and I voted to move this to the town in 08. It was Rabinowitz, Hofstadter, Ryan Murphy, and Savolt.
Mhm.
So 2 weeks ago, whenever we discussed this last time, whenever that was, I hadn't completed the research on it. And there's specific guidelines from HUD as far as how to administer the Section 8 vouchers. It's easy. It's the easy part. Having the ability and the time in our office is also there, okay, to do this. If we're gonna do Section 8 vouchers, we're gonna do the administration or the placement of individuals in affordable units. This way, we're continuing to, as we hopefully add more,
Mhm.
we
Yeah,
wanna do the whole thing.
okay,
That's trickier.
that
It
makes
is
sense.
trickier, but there's assistance and almost like a separate function that can
Mhm.
happen without us getting involved in that, because there's the availability for individuals to go on our website, apply, and put their name on the waiting list, so that when we do have that 1, 2, or 3 units
Mhm.
per development, we're ready to go right away, right? We have a couple right now at 355, and then we have 2 more coming online as soon as they finish on the bus.
Mhm.
So I don't want to go too far. I don't want to get too far, behind
Mhm.
on this. I'm just presenting it to you that it may be time for us, with the structure and the culture change that we've been able to implement in our village administration, that it might be time for us to take it back and just administer it. This way we have control over it and not have that back and forth with the town, where people are coming to me and you sometimes saying, we have affordable units, we can't fill them, but we have no control over how that's done.
Is it because when we during the planning process, we give the responsibility for filling these units to the town?
The last successful transition was the Grand Street Apartments,
Mhm.
Grand Street Lofts, they call right across from the car wash, from Dickey's car wash. That was the last time. That was probably early when I first got here, late 18, early 19, before the pandemic. Since then, we haven't had any additional units, but now they've come up. And now they're going to start to multiply.
And I think we need to
Someone's
tender
read the
because
stuff.
the developers who have these affordable units, they have a beef.
And they have a right to have a beep, but, and I think that you could do the Section 8 administration. But what I'm concerned about is marketing fair and affordable units is very technical and very complicated. And that may be something that you might want to have a partner who does it more consistently.
I will certainly outsource that. What this conversation is about is developing or reclaiming the housing authority back to the village. That's what this is about.
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
I mean, because if it's a big priority for us, if it's not a big priority for the town, or as big, or as, as urgent a priority, then we need to do it.
It seems like there might be a possibility to create affordable units in Larchmont, not in the unincorporated. That doesn't.
Village
seem
of
like-
Larchmont?
Village of Larchmont.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem like a large possibility that there could be affordable units developed in the unincorporated. We're gonna be the only ones that are gonna have this development. And I think that I don't need control over it. I just need to be able to answer to you that
There's a process.
as a process, but we're requiring it, we're also administering. it. We're requiring it, we're also outsourcing to make sure it's done properly. That's
The question
that's
is,
the accountability I'm looking for.
That's fine.
my question is, how is the administration of HUD being handled? I mean, is that breaking down in the town system?
No, it's not that I know of. Not that I know.
And frankly, there may be, if the housing compact passes, that's gonna be a game changer in terms of units that are coming online in 3 years.
May, I didn't, do a.
You can't, I
full
mean,
dive into
wait
that yet,
until,
but
wait and
We'll see if our governor signs, I said we see if our governor, right, runs that down our way.
I think it's gonna change.
it may change. I mean, we don't
I
know.
don't think, yeah, I
But-
don't know, but until she pens, I don't know if it's, something we have to worry about. Deal with.
That's the hard part was when they push this stuff through as part of the budget. Because, they put something in for everybody in the budget
Mhm.
and they make it hard to vote.
They had
against.
they had ADUs in it for a while back too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, I think you have, you see a problem,
We
you
have
have
a
to,
local problem.
you have to figure out a solution, and it may not be, we trust you to figure out a solution, and we'll help you.
Yeah.
in any way we can.
And I'll ask for.
Yeah, because I don't want to see months go by where
No.
apartments are vacant when folks.
No.
could-
But it's also, you're not gonna be able to affect this change in 2 weeks, so you gotta
Well,
start,
it's
you
gonna
gotta
take-
figure it out.
But at least we're moving forward
Mhm.
to do something about our situation at this.
And I think this will probably get the town's attention and we can, so one more thing we can talk to them about when we sit down. with them.
We can talk to the town at any time. I mean, they're easily approachable, but the reality is it might be time for us to take this back. Not sure what the dynamics were when we gave it away, gave it to them. But like I said, the new culture in our organization, we can handle it and bring it back.
What's the timeline? Like, how long does this process take?
I'll
For
be
you.
back to you with the full research. And some contacts that Nora will share with me and that kind of stuff in 2 weeks. All right, and then I'll give you a timeline. I can't give you a timeline now. I can only give you, I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. That's it.
Fair enough. So we'll leave this on the agenda for 2 weeks,
Please do, yeah,
but you know that you have at least some
I appreciate that.
tentative support here. Okay, going down the list, legislation regarding the safety and maintenance of utility poles. Jerry?
Well, I'm sure I'm gonna pass it on to Mary because she come up with a better idea.
Mary, you get a better idea?
I just wrote it. So this new statute would.
Microphone, Mary.
Sorry.
So the installation of any new pole, which will become a double pole, must be, the original pole must be removed within 90 days. And.
So I can jump in.
Thank
So
you.
my original idea was to have the utility companies, we have this $250 fee all throughout our code, penalty all throughout our code. I originally approached the board where it'd be $250 per week. Mary fine-tuned it so that we follow our code and a lot of other areas in penalty provision in our code where it's $250 per day. So that's why I thought Mary's idea was better. But it really is very similar to what Portchester does, except that the fee is a little bit less than Portchester. They are $750 per day, we are $250 per day. It kind of falls in line with all of our other penalties that we impose when someone doesn't follow our code.
And that would apply to any kind of safety violation with utility poles. So if there's an unsafe pole and they receive notice of their unsafe pole and it's not remedied within 120 days, then the penalty will start to accrue.
So we're giving them plenty of time.
Mhm.
And really, the objective is not to make money, although that's probably mine. The objective is to get rid of these unsightly poles, for which we are, blessed with over 100 of these throughout the community.
So does this law cover the? Is this law retroactive? Does it cover poles that are double poles now?
No, it's not.
It's not retroactive. So the poles, the double poles that are there now, we don't have an enforcement mechanism.
Not right now, no.
But we can put-
Effective the day that this becomes, immediately the day that this becomes effective, those are in violation.
You
Oh,
can-
that's
you
what I
can-
mean. That's what I was
yeah.
asking.
Or you can give them, as long as you give them fair warning,
We're
right?
giving them 120 days.
Because
I mean, each day that it's out there.
it's in the law.
is a violation.
In the law, it says when a public utility installs a new pole,
Mhm.
right? So they can make the argument, these aren't news poles, they've been there forever.
But when we put them on notice, they have 120 days to get rid of the existing. Yeah.
But Jared,
If it's a safety violation, if it's a safety issue and there's double poles and it's considered to be a safety issue.
okay, but the
then
law,
you put on notice.
the law says in A, in Portchester Code, right? When a public utility installs a new pole. Right? So how does that affect the double poles that already exist? Because they're gonna say they're not new poles.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that a loophole? I guess.
Safety issue,
And
then we're not retroactively telling them to remove a double pole.
Can we?
If the engineer or the village manager determines that there is
So
a
I'm saying-
safety issue,
so, but
then yes.
the safety issue could be like if we're looking at the image that was presented in the agenda, is that it's taking up majority of the sidewalk. That is a safety issue for people who have strollers, who are wheelchair bound. So that is a safety issue.
Yeah, that's not passable.
Yeah,
That's not passable. with the
so you
wheelchair.
can, there's
And I
many
think
ways
that-
you can
that-
sit there and
that
say
point, right.
it's a safety issue.
But if it's off of if it's in a, I almost said rural, but if it's in a road without sidewalks, that's kind of like just hanging out there. That I may not be able to deem that a safety issue.
Right.
Although we can put them on notice, we wouldn't be able to pass this without that. So I think we may need something to be able to deal with our existing.
Yeah, and we could deal with that at a later time, right? We could
Oh.
we could outlaw double poles. I mean, I guess, right?
We should probably do it all at the same time.
Yeah, we should do
I
it.
think we do it now. Yeah,
We should revise the law.
yeah, so I think we should revise the law, existing or new.
Maybe there's like I don't know, I mean, we don't write the laws, but maybe
How about-
there's paragraph A, paragraph, and then we. do
How about just in paragraph A, right?
Our paragraph A?
Yeah. No, Portchester.
Okay,
In a public utility.
creates a condition.
The public utility. Creates a double pole. Condition. The public utility. When a public utility. Creates or has created.
Both.
Yeah.
Creates or has created.
That's what I'm saying. Creates or has created.
About past and present and future.
You know what I mean?
A double pole utility condition, the utility shall have, in our case, 120 days of the installation. Or notice, it should be
Did you
noticed.
say within 30 days of installation or adoption of this law? Or when this,
I think it's just notice, Nora. I think if we just give them notice,
we have within 30 days of installation.
our law is.
Oh, wait, I'm
But
looking
we're
at
also-
Portchester, I'm looking at Portchester.
Yes, so we're all looking at what you
Yeah.
said.
I think for any kind of retroactive application, you would need a separate paragraph.
Okay.
Which you can draft up possibly with additional notice requirements.
Yeah, could you work on that, Mayor? Yeah, because I want to get rid of the 300 poles that we have
Mhm.
that we don't need.
Yeah,
That was the whole purpose of this.
so it's 30 days. Creates or has created as a separate paragraph, or has created as a separate paragraph. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Good.
appreciate that.
Everybody's okay, we'll keep working on this.
Yep.
Keep trucking.
All right, I'm just, so everybody knows, 7:15, and we're gonna do executive session and then sustenance.
It's 7:15.
Did I miss something? It's cheap.
She is
Business report, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Business recruitment.
Let's hold off on that. Dan and I are going back and forth. I've been distracted with some other things, and we need to drill down on it, but I felt, Dan sent me a survey we did in 2015. One of the primary conclusions of was that we do this. So that was 2015, and I don't know why it wasn't done, but we need to.
So for next meeting, you want us to add that survey to the agenda? Because I
Yeah.
don't have it on my back. You guys have it? on your-
No.
No.
Thank you.
We'll talk to Dan about
All
it,
right.
Yeah.
but it's not ready yet.
So Lear,
Solar panels, so.
Solar,
Leanne,
the solar panels.
It's the fancy version.
I write
10,000
words a week. You got them on one.
Yes. Solar panel installation on village-owned buildings. Whereas energy plays an essential role in the daily lives of all American individual families and businesses, and whereas reliable access to this energy is best ensured through a diverse energy mix generated and delivered by a variety of fuel and technology sources, and whereas solar energy is an abundant, domestic, cost-effective, renewable energy resource that can improve national security by reducing reliance on foreign sources, and whereas local distributed solar energy generation can contribute to a more resilient grid, reduce costs for all ratepayers by providing energy during peak hours, and defer the need for costly investments in bulk transmission and generation. Whereas the Village of Mamaroneck has been recognized as a climate smart community because of its efforts to reduce its carbon footprint and employment of best management practices to limit the impact on the environment. And whereas, as a next step, the Board of Trustees has expressed their desire that the village continue its efforts and seek to install solar panels on the roofs of village-owned buildings. Then they are scheduled for when they are scheduled for major rehabilitation of present. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees establishes a policy that a component for future construction projects designed to conduct major rehabilitation or replacement of roofs at village-owned buildings, that the installation of solar generation equipment be included to the maximum extent practical. Okay, makes sense to me. Is everybody fine with that?
Yes.
Yes.
With the couple of little edits? Yes. You want to have that on the agenda for March 13th?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. See if there is a consensus for that. So Sally, I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Yes, sir.
Request for the Budget Committee to review consolidation of Portchester with the town of Raleigh, Portchester Court. I put this on the agenda. A few years back, the Village of Portchester merged dissolved the village court, and the town of Rye took up that function. I have heard that it was financially advantageous to the Village of Portchester. I don't know that to be true. I don't know what other complications might have come with that. So what I would like to do is just ask the Budget Committee to get in contact and work with our friends in the Village of Portchester to see, what were the cost savings, what were the cost expenses, just do a cost benefit analysis of it before we even begin a discussion about whether it's, a good idea for the community. Because if it's not cost beneficial, I don't see the point to it anyway. So I would just like the board's consensus to ask the Budget Committee to do the research and to get back to us with the research, and not on an operational basis, just on the basis of dollars and cents. And if it's okay with this board, I would then call the mayor of Portchester just to let him know that our Budget Committee would be contacting his folks, and if that's all right with him.
I do think that one of the dissimilarities is that the village of Portchester and the town of Rye shared the same facilities for their court, so there weren't different physical spaces. And the police were already going there, so I think they're gonna not have to just see whether Portchester saved money, but what are gonna be the impacts to us for having to deal with two separate buildings that are a little farther away. They didn't actually change their campus. They were they're in the same building. So I think that might be a factor, but I think the budget committee will figure out what they need to analyze to get the costs of it.
Yeah. So is everybody fine with
That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Need information on it.
We don't need a vote. This is plenty of the consensus of the board, so we could tell the budget committee to go ahead.
Frankly, I think it was on the agenda for the meeting last week that got canceled. So I think they're all ready. You
Okay,
sent them an email. I think it's on their radar.
I'll tell Charlie.
They responded to your email.
Somebody does. I remember somebody actually listened. Thank you all. People shouldn't be overwrought or scared about it. It's just, listen, in my view, we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't look at this. You know, we had a discussion earlier this evening about the budget, and every year at this time, the budget's always scary. And this year's a little more scary because of the impact of the healthcare costs and the impact of the pension costs, which are directly related to the tanking of the stock market in the last year. All right, thank you all for that. Lou, this is you. Flood mitigation portable hydraulic pumps.
So yes, so Tony Gelber contacted these folks. I watched them brief Tony and our village staff over at the confluence, talking about what these pumps could do and could not do. My interest in this, and I think our interest in this is, what do we do in the time before the Army Corps project gets up to snuff, when it's gonna flood again? And could something like this help us avoid disastrous flooding to mitigate the Lake Mamaroneck that forms there? That's something I think at this point we could ask our village engineer to weigh in on. I know the FMAC is already talking about it, and it could be an emergency solution that we could embrace. It's expensive, but it may save more money than it costs if it comes to eventuality. Because if the water tops the dam, we've got a matter of hours before we're flooded.
Minutes.
Well, okay, and to be able to drop pumps into the confluence and begin diverting large amounts of water out immediately to the harbor could save some people from getting flooded as severely, could save some people from getting flooded at all, could mitigate the next disaster if it happens. And I think we would be foolish not to explore the possibility, and that's all this is.
Do the pumps, so are they installed in the anticipation of a rain event? That seems,
So they'd be installed for 3 seasons at a time. They'd be
it'd have
installed
to,
for 9
okay,
months.
so they'd be a semi-permanent structure.
We would ideally want to initially lease them, rent them
Mhm.
from the company, have them installed for 9 months. And have DPW staff ready to
Activate them.
activate them as quickly as possible.
You would have the pump on the Holstead Avenue side of the trains.
Mhm.
We would have it on the MTA side of the train, the MTA parking lot side of the train.
Yeah.
It'd have to be on some sort of platforms, I would imagine.
And
And
where,
then-
okay, so you'd be pumping from the confluence, and where would the egress of the pump be?
So the hose, the tubing would be under the MTA, under Holstead, and out behind Dance.
And that's there on a semi-permanent basis. So that it's set up and it just has to be, it's like a generator. It's set up.
We'd set it up and break it down for winter months.
Yeah, it would basically work the way that the overflow culvert that the Corps has proposed would work, as far as the location.
And Tony's not here, but over the course of I forgot what it was, over the course of 6 hours, it could drain how many feet of water from that entire area? I mean, it's just,
500,000 gallons, something like that.
and it's, and again, with flood mitigation, if you reduce,
So you can limit, so 7 feet of water over 50 acres in a 20-hour period. The thing with this, however, is that you can't wait for the water to build up into Lake Mamaroneck and then start pumping.
You have to,
You have to pump it beforehand.
yeah, you have to get it rolling beforehand.
So you may not have the depth to be able to get the water into a large reservoir pool currently at Columbus Park. right?
Yeah, it's,
You have to create that to have that water so you could pump it out
we have to dig something, is what you're saying?
potentially.
So I would,
There's a little issue with
I think that this is a really, it's like an outside the box idea, which is not surprising from Tony, because he thinks that way. But I think that, this, given the container that got stuck under the bridge, the containers that got stuck under the bridge, that sort of adverse impact wasn't considered, that there'd have to be a pretty significant environmental analysis to make sure that this doesn't have an unintended bad consequence too. I think we'd have to.
How many times have we had in any of our floods containers or anything of that magnitude or size block the bridge like that?
So the container went underneath 2 bridges
Mhm.
before it got lodged along the banks.
Mhm.
So it's not that it got blocked, it just.
I mean, the flood was here already.
And it's,
Yeah, right.
I mean,
It lifted the container.
It traveled.
no, I get it. And the containers were there because, and that wasn't that for the, that was a food
for food
pantry.
pantry, right.
Food pantry, so it's not often that we have
No.
anything of that size just
It didn't block anything, it just floated away.
floated away.
What we have had in the past is debris, right, cars blocking, boats,
Oh, yeah.
large stumps blocking, especially at the Sheldrake site.
The
So we've
morning
had
after
that.
right outside of Lou's house was a big boat.
And
these-
it probably, I probably know.
And
whose it
these
was.
pumps, I mean,
my yacht.
like the pumps create like a vacuum so that stuff's gonna be drawn to them. So there has to be a way of making sure that like they don't get blocked by trees
Yeah.
or there was like a shed that floated away. So I mean,
Yeah, the Dodge Durango, yes.
yeah. So I think we have to sort of, now that we have had that experience, that probably needs to be factored into this equation too.
Okay.
But I mean, and it's not when Ace was here, and it was the first question I went up and I asked Bethany that. I said, did you guys rule out pumps? And she said, we ruled out pumps for us. You're free to use pumps.
She said that in
Yeah,
an earlier meeting as
yeah.
well.
So,
I think the pumps work for us after the Army Corps has completed their project.
yeah, that might be it.
That's when it works.
Yeah, but I don't want to just tell people that, yeah, it's going to be a couple of years before the Army Corps gets there. We just hope it doesn't rain. I mean,
I get that. I get it.
With the Army Corps, I mean, they've done so much work, they've thought about things. Would they be able to opine on this specific proposal? They may have some documentation about it.
So they would review it, if we asked them to review it, but as far as them funding it.
No, I'm not asking them to fund it, but I mean, they could say, oh, this is a really great idea, or don't waste your money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they didn't, because even in the
So-
meeting prior to.
I've been told, no, they ruled it out. And when I asked, she goes, no, you can, no, we ruled it out for us, so.
They look at everything on that 1-to-1 cost benefit ratio.
Yeah.
Right.
But, the Army Corps, when we were going through the design of Hillside Avenue Bridge, they were able to quantify an answer to the question, what replacement of that bridge was going to accomplish, irrespective of whether the Army Corps project was going forward. They have a lot of that data, so.
Yeah, I think it's,
I'm sure they can probably give us, some good information.
I mean, I don't want to buy expensive pumps if they're not going to help, but.
No, and if we
But I guess
but if they are gonna help, And I mean, now if we have to dig a retaining pond, that's a different like story. Like, what do we have to do?
One of the things that. I mean, I don't understand why it has to be, but my fear is if it's if it's in Columbus Park.
Mhm.
And it gets away from us and the flood happens. We're gonna owe somebody for 2 pumps.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I work with pumps all the time and hydraulic elevators, and the pump doesn't have to be right next to what you pump.
It does.
So I was thinking putting it on the Holstead Avenue side.
Okay.
Because this way, that's not gonna flood. I don't know, I mean.
Yeah.
Just.
I'm no expert. on
All the questions that can be asked.
So the 5 of us should not be
All the
specking a
questions-
pump project. We
Questions
should,
that can be asked to the
that's-
chair.
like, what do we know?
No,
So,
this is conceptual.
No,
Yeah,
This is,
yeah.
this is conceptual. This is something that if we wanted to approve the dedication of some staff time, then you know, that's why we're talking about it, right? So Gino can look into this and there's no doubt about Gino's education and qualifications. He knows about hydraulic and hydrology and all of that.
He and the pump people seem to be speaking the same language.
Exactly right. So if he does that, so we could see what there is. And plus Gino is becoming more familiar with the individuals who are at the Army Corps and the DEC more and more each day. So let's, you know, we can continue to talk about it. As far as having it, Mayor, on the agenda, continuing to have it on the agenda, I'm not sure if it's the right place for this.
Put it on what's right again.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah.
I think so.
Listen, the only reason I put it on there was so we could send it to the flood mitigation advisory committee, and they just took off without being referred. So I think
for them.
it's got a life of its own.
All right,
Good for the flood.
Mhm.
item K, review of village housing discrimination law. This is Lalani's.
I feel so special for my first thing on the agenda. Bear with me.
Yeah, take your time.
So our housing discrimination law hasn't been updated since 1969. We all know those things, the things that were happening in 1969 with you know, various communities, which kind of still happens today. And the language needs to be updated. Like it, for instance, if you're looking at our law, we're in A1, where it talks about persons or group of persons of race, creed, color, national origin, sex, but it doesn't necessarily say anything that possibly could support a person's sexual orientation, which these are just words that are in our vocabulary present day that wasn't necessarily in 1969. So I think in order to best serve our community, we should definitely update it. And along in the agenda was examples that, thank you, Dan, for adding it, are examples from New York State housing. I'm trying to pull it. New York State housing and anti-discrimination, their laws and notices. So we can kind of mimic their wording, add it, but just taking a look as to what we want. And if the good old people with Mary and Bob, if they can update it to ensure that the language reflects today's world.
Yeah,
I would greatly appreciate it.
I think-
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, please go ahead, Lalani.
No, Nora
No,
was
I
trying.
mean, I said it was, you're right, it was last updated, the penalty provision in 1987. The actual law was 1970.
Oh, 1970.
So it's
It was like January.
years younger than our archaic zoning code.
Well, I
This is-
joked that the last 2 times it was revised, the Mets were the reigning world champions. So I believe Jerry and I would like this to be amended soon.
Diapers for me, Danny. So
So,
Yeah.
I recommend we don't cut Mr. Sarnoff out of this process because he's really into stuff like this and it's kind of like his forte.
Please, I don't,
To
yeah,
have Dan and our deputy and village attorney work on this, I
please.
think it's a great idea.
Awesome.
I think
yeah,
it's great. It needs to be
everybody,
updated.
everybody on the board fine with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
Thank
job,
you
Lauren.
very much.
Very good.
Now, second one, let me close all these things down. Which is adjusting, reviewing and adjustment of our medium income requirements, since we are talking about affordable housing. We're talking about trying to be more inclusive with the people who live in our community. Even before becoming a trustee, I asked, I think it was the board prior to me being on here. I did state in one of the meetings, I can't remember what it was about, but I stated, who do we want living in our community? Because it looks as though we're trying to push people out. And it's not just our community that is going through the same thing, but a lot of communities are going through what is true affordable housing and what is, I know that the governor may have her mandates. I don't know if it's going to be passed or not, but at the end of the day, we should have whatever comes into our community in terms of development. There should be a variety of average medium income in terms of what we allow. And if we have the power to make these policies or make these adjustments, we should have different, a variety of percentages included when we are asking people, or we're allowing people to develop in our community. And if they can't, then they just shouldn't be building, because we literally cannot, I can't afford to live here. I can't.
So it's designated affordable, but it's not attainable.
It's not attainable at all. At all. And then the variety, like there's a lot of restrictions when it comes down to co-ops. We don't even have enough condos. We don't have enough variety of different types of housing in our community. And I know that the community is stressed and about the overdevelopment. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. The prior boards did allow that. I didn't do that. But what we do need, we need people to be able to live here, all from all different backgrounds, from all different types of incomes. We should be able to live. The gentleman before, I think it was Tim O'Connor, who said something about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Personally, the struggles that I have to deal with every day, I don't know if I have all that. And that's just the truth. Some of you guys may have it, but I don't have it at all times. So in order for people to live here, I believe that should be included. And I'm done.
Okay, but I understand, but okay, what are we, right now, when developers come in, right? I think that they have the AMI of 80% on affordable.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And I understand. But is that number mandated by the county, or is that something that we can, I mean, I'm fine with changing it for us.
Well, I mean,
Looking.
we discussed that at great length in 2019 when we were redoing the zoning, and we required affordable housing in certain portions of the village. And I will, Dan and I argued that 80% was too high and it should be lower, but our planners kept telling us, no, no, no. So
The planners are gonna tell you, I'm sorry, but I'm
I'm
sorry.
with you. No, I agree. I agree. But what they say is the lines don't cross, and that they'll never be able to get a developer who's going to come in and build an affordable unit at 60% or lower.
Right.
And
That's
so
always the argument.
that's the argument.
right?
That's the argument. And that's,
60% developer, it's never gonna work financially for developers, so we pretty much have killed development that could potentially
right.
be affordable if you don't go at the 80%.
and so that was, I don't know how, that was just the argument. I mean, to get anything, that's what we agreed.
That's a community choice. If that's the case, then that's the case, right? We don't make laws to help the developers, we make laws to help, in this case, people who can't afford, right, the 100% or the market rate units.
I mean, that Dan's argument was, you make the law, the developer wants to make money, the developer will come in and develop at a lower AMI.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't make money doing what we require, then build your development somewhere else.
Or provide some additional other incentives to be able to get those.
A bonus to provide lower affordable.
So for instance, we provided, we have this recreation fee. And we changed the law so that the developers didn't have to pay these per unit fees, but it was a sliding scale. So the more affordable that unit is, the deeper discount they got in that fee. So we haven't had a lot of development, but it was, that got passed during the pandemic, I think, right? Or right before the pandemic. So we haven't had a lot.
Before the pandemic.
But well, the moratorium law was before the pandemic, but I can't remember when we
No, we
changed.
passed the law in 2019.
Right, but when we changed the recreation fee, so we tried to like incentivize developers by giving them a break on the recreation fee if they were more.
Isn't that similar to
Affordable.
what we were talking about earlier in terms of the incentives that we're
Yeah.
giving for just to be able to rezone? For it?
There may want to be a discussion about additional incentives. You want people, if you want developers to build here and have 30, 40, 60%, you're gonna have to come up with a package of incentives in order to be able to do that.
Will that hurt our bottom line? Will that hurt us bringing in money or anything like that?
So in this case, right, what Nora just said, the recreation fee, right, that we've collected in the past, we can't, if there's very deeply affordable, fair and deeply affordable units, we wouldn't be able to collect that recreation fee. So that hurts us because then we have to improve recreation, develop recreation with a different pot of money, a different source of money, right? So at the end of the day, there's always a dynamic that you have to think about.
My general view, and this isn't written in stone, but is that there's been a heck of a lot of development in the past 20, 25 years. I don't know if we need more development, but I do know that we need more affordable development. That's what's been missing, right? A lot of the affordable units that were put in some of these places, they timed out, and we learned that under the law, perpetuity meant 20 years.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Go ahead,
So-
I'm sorry.
So, I mean, this is almost an aside, because I do think we could probably lower this,
Mhm.
but I think that we really have to work at, building and facilitating the building of all affordable. So this way, it's not an issue anymore.
Yeah.
The whole, when a developer who does affordable, gets the tax breaks to do it, and he gets incentivized by the government to do it, he can go 80, 60, 40. Right?
Mhm.
And because he has other ways to make up for that lost revenue
Mhm,
and still run a good building.
mhm.
But the guy who's or gal who's building a building and wants to rent out all those apartments, he wants to get every dime out of it, right? So he wants to keep it at 80, because then he's only losing 20% on one or two apartments.
I get it.
No, yeah. So that's why I think it's so important that we incentivize folks to build all affordable.
So that
Well-
may require a discussion with developers who build affordable units.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what incentives they're looking for, at least I don't, maybe others do, but I don't know. what incentives they're
Well,
looking for.
I think also working with the county planning department, because, one of the big incentives is inexpensive land. If you can, so that
Well, that
when,
doesn't exist.
right.
That, yeah,
No,
that-
no,
why
it
we're
does,
so
it
lucky
doesn't
about it.
exist, but the county, yeah, that's why that parking lot is
So good.
is so good.
Yeah.
But because a developer can put together funding sources and sometimes grants and loans, and they have a mix of affordable housing. And that's, and clearly, we do not need to be the developers. We need to work with professionals who know what they're doing. But the county has a big pot of money, and they put a much bigger pot in this year's budget. Last year's budget was bigger, this year's budget is bigger. They'll help with like land acquisition costs. And this is part of what the governor's housing compact is. It's rezoning, to zone to allow the kinds of development that's needed, whether it's a little bit denser, whether it's, taking an existing building that's not a residential building, a commercial building, which New York City is doing and, trying to turn into housing. So I think it's a combination of things, but
It is a combination of things, but I also believe that not even just our community, we need to take a stand on the percentage of AMIs that come into our community. And because anybody, it doesn't matter if the land is more dense or just cheap or whatever, people are gonna still, because we live in a capitalistic society who's just greedy, they're gonna still just build at 80%.
well,
And that at some point, we have to make a decision as to, are we gonna let, and I'll put it like this, are we gonna let the poor people die out and we're just gonna allow the rich to live?
well, that's why I raised the issue about whether in the law that we were just about to schedule a public hearing on in 2 weeks, we
Mhm.
wanted to lower the AMI. Because
I agree.
we're at 80. So, we're at 80, but I think people don't even know what the limits are. So, 80% AMI for a 3-person household is an income of $99,850. That's not a low, that's not a low income. That's not a low income. And so, that's
You have the 30 there?
the 30 is, so 30, a 3-person household, the AMI of 30 is 37,450,
That's affordable.
right? That's still a substantial income. For a 1-person household at 30%, it's $29,150. So we're talking about, young people who are finishing school and working in our community. We're not talking about, when we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about housing that any one of us can afford.
Our
And-
seniors, even middle-aged adults, some people just don't have the jobs that will pay them 6 figures.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, 80% AMI for a 3-person household is a 6-figure salary. So, they would be combined if it's 2 parents who are working, if it's a 2-person household, but we're not talking about people who aren't earning good salaries. We're talking about how expensive it is to live in this community if you haven't been able to borrow money from your parents for a down payment.
Right.
Right.
So the board sets the percentage.
Maybe do we
Well-
need to review a little bit more?
Well-
Let's have a proposal, like a concrete proposal. How do we want to work this? I mean, do you want to go 70%? Do we want to go 60%? Do we need information to make that decision?
I ask-
Nora has the chart.
I have the chart.
I just want to see the chart.
Who do you want to keep? Who do you want to keep? Who do you want to help in the community? The chart will dictate that.
So, and here's the question for Mary. If we make, let's say we adopt the AMI, the model ordinance that we are going to, let's say we adopt it in a month, right? We schedule a public hearing, we adopt it. If we lower the AMI, we're essentially changing zoning over more than 25 acres. So that's another secret evaluation, right?
I don't know if that's a zoning thing. I don't know.
I don't know.
Because that's not going to in any way affect the density.
No, not at all. That's just an income.
But should
thing.
we
It's not zoning.
evaluate the impacts of the AMI as part of the seeker analysis?
Might be a policy decision.
No, what are we saying? Poor people are gonna have a different impact than richer people?
No, it's really about, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how we do this, because when we tried, listen, Dan and I were annoying broken records in 2019, you might remember that.
Broken records, not annoying.
Broken records,
Oh, yeah.
that we should be lowering it, and the planner said, can't do it. So we both eventually we voted for it reluctantly because the law was better than nothing. So how do we do that analysis and get?
To answer that secret question, you're not changing the allowable use. It's still going to be residential.
Okay,
And if you're not changing allowable use, you don't have to worry about a type 1.
so, okay. So we can simply think about, it won't stop requiring affordable housing throughout the village, but we have to really figure out how we.
I think it should be focused on the people you want to keep in the community and the chart and look at the dynamics of both.
Well, let's keep this on for next one. And let's all look at the chart. I'm trying to think of what would be comfortable.
If somebody circulated via email, all of it's this chart.
You know, I'll have it at home, but yeah.
Right.
Scan it.
All right, folks,
I'm
now
pretty
comes to the portion of the meeting where we go into executive session. Tonight, there are two executive session items. The one is a new litigation by old favorites, McCrory and Teekert versus the Board of Appeals and Ian and Jessica Sigalo. I need a motion to discuss that in executive session.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the next is the employment contract of the village manager. And I will make that motion to go into executive session to discuss that item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll see you all in executive session.
Okay.
See us walking into executive session.
Nora,
Yeah.
the thing you wanted to talk about,